is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Thursday, April 24th, 2025. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Jacob Silverman back with us to talk about Trump's meme coin scam. And later in the show, Abdel El Sayed, candidate for U.S. Senate in Michigan, joins us to talk about that race. Also on the program, amidst peace negotiations led by the U.S. that are newly favorable to Putin, Russia bombs Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, overnight, killing at least 10. Trump asked Putin to stop over Truth Social.
You can't do it, Vladimir. You do it, it's going to be a bad day.
Coincidence alert. That's like almost exactly what he said. He just said, Vladimir, stop, please. Coincidence alert. Billionaires, including Mark Zuckerberg and Jamie Dimon, apparently liberated themselves of billions of dollars in shares right before Trump's tariff announcement. China is dog-walking Trump on tariffs, publicly calling out the administration as Trump quietly caves. More than a dozen states joined California suing the administration over tariffs. A Fox News poll shows Trump is underwater in approval rating on every issue except immigration, and is minus 11 overall on approval rating. That is, like, pretty unheard of in the first 100 days. Pete Hegseth had Signal installed on his Pentagon office computer, as well as a makeup studio in the Pentagon. He's got to hide that flush for the cameras, you know what I mean?
Get these mirrors to judge these sideburns a little bit better.
Right. Yeah, he missed that. Israel kills at least 26 people, including a family of 6 with 4 children in overnight strikes near Jabalia. Far-right Israeli National Security Minister Ben-Gvir was pelted with water bottles at his talk at Yale University, where encampments have once again cropped up. Trump denies disaster relief to Arkansas to help them rebuild after deadly tornadoes killed dozens of people a month ago. Kilmar Abrego Garcia's wife was forced to move to a safe house with her children, 2 of whom are special needs due to MAGA's harassment. Trump reportedly strikes a deal with Rwanda to accept deportees. And lastly, the longtime executive producer of 60 Minutes is stepping down after Trump baselessly sued the network because they edited out Kamala Harris coughing or something during an interview. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's a Majority Report Thursday. Yes, it is. Hello, Russ. Hello, Matt. Hello, special in-studio Thursday guest, and it will be revealed soon who that is. It's a mystery. But very excited to have this person in studio for the fun half. Let's get started. We have a lot to talk about today. Wanted to highlight this because this is an enormously important development, and it's just one of the many ways that the Trump administration is harming all of us. Well, at least 50% of the population. Since the early 90s, 1991, the NIH has been studying women's health. They started this women's health initiative because there is a major gap in research for women's health because historically, I mean, there are still people alive now when this was the case. Research on medicine and health outcomes has largely been focused on men, male subjects. That's not just for women, even when they use animal studies. It's more focused on male animals in clinical trials historically. And so this has resulted in poorer health outcomes for women, particularly women of color, LGBTQ people. There's been lots of misdiagnoses, less understanding about pain. I mean, things like hysterectomies were widely given out to women based on pain that they were experiencing that could have been solved with less intervention. I mean, that's an extremely painful and difficult surgery. And that could have happened if health outcomes had been better understood. And so the NIH in the 90s started to look into this and wanted to launch a major study to fill in the gaps in studying women's symptoms and so that their health care is better. Trump is gutting this study. Let's put up this article from Science magazine. President Donald Trump's administration appears to be killing much, if not all, of a historic initiative that was the first and is still the largest National Institutes of Health effort centered around the health needs of women. The Women's Health Initiative, WHI, has enrolled tens of thousands of participants in clinical trials of hormones and other medications and tracked the health of many thousands more over more than 3 decades. Its findings have had a major influence on healthcare. WHI leaders announced yesterday that contracts supporting its regional centers are being terminated in September, and that the study's clinical coordinating center, based at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Center, will continue operations until January 2026, after which time its funding remains uncertain. They added that the contract terminations for its 4 main sites will significantly impact ongoing research and data collection, severely limiting WHI's ability to generate new insights into the health of older women, one of the fastest growing segments of our population. There are about 55 million postmenopausal women in the United States. Scientists familiar with the initiative, whose annual funding is currently just under $10 million. This is like this is like a penny in your couch cushion in terms of what the federal government spends.
I was going to underline that for like the type of impacts, like just to underline, like the World Women's Health Initiative challenged long-held beliefs about the benefits of hormone therapy for preventing heart disease in postmenopausal women, revealed that combined estrogen, this is just one example, progesterone hormone therapy actually increased the risk of heart disease. Like these sorts of things for $10 million, that's like a not high-level NBA player's salary per year.
You're coming off the bench. Yeah. This is nothing for the federal government that spends trillions and trillions of dollars. It's like you picking up a pack of gum at the gas station.
An economic analysis estimated a $35.2 billion savings in medical expenses in the decade following the release of WHI's hormone therapy results due to fewer cardiovascular disease and breast cancer cases. That's $10 million a year program. Yep.
This trial just taught us an immense amount about the prevention of disease in women, says Sarah Temkin, a gynecological oncologist, who until the 11th of April was Associate Director for Clinical Research in the Office of Research on Women's Health at NIH. This is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to have happen. Scroll to the next paragraph if we could. NIH's National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute has largely funded WHI, launched in 1991 under NIH's first woman director, Bernadine Healy. It was hugely ambitious, focusing on treatments that might prevent heart disease, breast and colon cancer, and bone fractures from osteoporosis in postmenopausal women. More than 160,000 women participated in its initial clinical trials, or were later tacked into its observational study or community prevention extension arms. It soon produced key findings, including, and Matt just alluded to this, that combined estrogen and progesterone pills taken for menopausal symptoms did not prevent heart disease in women after menopause. The follow-up of patients has continued to yield insights, such as that calcium and vitamin D supplementation does not prevent fractures in postmenopausal women, which was, I remember literally, my mother telling me about this kind of thing when she was going through her own health issues with breast cancer. And as these things were developing, it gave women in that age bracket a better understanding of their health care. It should be noted that this study, because it's been going on for 30 years, is now more focused on postmenopausal women, which the Trump administration doesn't care about because you're no longer a baby-making factory for them. Because he's talking about being the fertility president and borrowing all of these Viktor Orban-style natalist policies, and Elon Musk is pro-natalist, basically saying that the white birthright in European and countries in the United States is too low. They're eugenicists for anybody that isn't in the cohort that they view as the dominant race or gender, or serving to further create the dominant race in their mind. So once the woman can't have children anymore, if she was never able to, well, they're basically useless at that point. So why not just cut this study? That's couch cushion money for us. This was really meant as a makeup project for women, because women have been excluded from research for so many years, says Garnet Anderson, a biostatistician who runs the WHI Coordinating Center. Anderson says WHI currently enrolls 42,000 women who update their researchers regularly on their health. The contract cut will prevent researchers at WHI's 4 sites from continuing to interact with women in this cohort, which has enabled researchers to create the country's largest data set on women in their 80s and 90s. Our ability to understand what's going on with those women will be severely curtailed, Anderson says. They have been dedicated to this process for 30 years and provide their data generously. They've told us they want to be followed. It'd be disrespectful not to do that. So there you go. That's just one of the ways that the Trump administration is harming all of us, or anybody that cares about a woman who is postmenopausal, has mothers, has family members, has people that they care about, let alone what we're seeing, the gutting of cancer research into other diseases, just slashed for no apparent reason except for the fact that this actually pairs nicely with what I was talking about earlier. A fundamentally eugenicist worldview. The slashing of USAID is going to kill millions if they keep this up in Africa, across different countries there, because of the HIV prevention measures that the United States was funding, in part due to Bush, by the way. Maybe one of the only good things that George W. Bush did in his administration was back up that research. Just cutting it. Sentencing all of these children to death and to HIV and potentially AIDS, because the administration thinks this is a handout to the global South, which we already exploit for capitalism, right? During deindustrialization, with the gutting of unions to make goods cheaper, and with all of this focus on consumption as opposed to workers' rights, we have outsourced the worst of capitalist exploitation to the global South, almost reifying what we did under colonialism and extending it. And the Trump administration sees the people who are bearing the brunt of this as takers, as opposed to the obvious victims of our economy that's so favored towards us.
Well, that's the dirty little secret about this whole birth rate thing, is that it's a relative issue, not an overall issue. I don't believe Elon just wants more and more people. He wants people that have his genetics. He said that. Close to his genetics, and and it's of course, in other countries, one way to make our the Elon approved birth rates look better is just have the other ones come down a little bit, and their quality of life worse, because then it's relatively better. But also, again, 40% of births in America and it's close to 50% when you get to rural areas, are covered by Medicaid, and they're slashing that. They're going after it. So like he does not care about. In a way, this is because he looked at it as a depopulation agenda being approached under the guise of some sort of pronatalism. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I just like that. What you're saying is exactly right, because that what Elon says that we have a population problem in terms of like the population isn't increasing, but we see the data that shows that it is. It is globally, but it's not in certain places. It's not in certain places like the United States, where some women are choosing maybe not to have children because it's too expensive. Like the biggest problem is that we don't have the capacity to support people to have children, but they distort that.
Oh, here's $5,000.
Yeah, they distort that into, well, it's the problem with everybody else. It's the immigrants, they're takers. This is why you can't have the life that you've dreamed of, and you want to have children, and you can't support your family. It's because of these people, as opposed to it's literally them scamming the rest of us. And this is what the agenda of the and the other point, and I'll wrap up here, is that RFK's agenda also fits into this, where he essentially views people with diseases or disabilities as a price tag and disgusting. He's disgusted by them, and so that is the anxiety he taps into. People want to feel empowered over their healthcare and their family's healthcare. And if they're pregnant and they have this anxiety that maybe their child may have a disability, he sells you snake oil that makes you feel like you can control it. But once people are born, what is the administration doing? Cutting funding, cutting support for these folks. And speaking about autistic people in general in this really dehumanizing way. And you kind of see where that's going, right? Where if you don't make the right choices about your healthcare, which RFK is giving people all the tools, but not the finances in the same way that they're approaching the global south. Well, it's survival of the fittest, folks.
The first thing he mentioned was they'll never pay taxes. That is not an accident. That is because he views them as a cost, a burden. And this is true of when he was running for president and he wasn't a pro-universal healthcare guy, because from his aristocratic ass perch, he views your health problems as too expensive to guarantee by Uncle Sam.
Exactly right. Clumsy Poet, I had estrogen positive breast cancer 3 years ago. I had my ovaries removed as a part of the treatment, surgical menopause. Now I'm on a med to prevent further bone density loss. All of this has impacted my ADHD and autism. It feels like the government is trying to hurt me. I'm so sorry. I mean, this is the reality. Alice in Portland. Hi, all. I've been living with stage 4 ovarian cancer since 2022, and I'm receiving care through Medicaid in Oregon. I'd love to share my experience and talk about all of the different types of care that are covered for me, highlighting how comprehensive the coverage is, including how treatments related to the study you're talking about, regarding hormones, post-radical hysterectomy, etc. If this is something you would like to hear about, let me know. I'll call in. Yes, Alice, please call in and just write in what your area code is. We will flag it. And JD's pants. The nephew of Rosemary Kennedy, a eugenicist? I'm shocked. And you don't have to look too far into the Kennedy history to see what their experience is with people who
lobotomizing people?
Yeah, but that's what happened to, when you say you never saw autistic people, that's what happened to folks with disabilities or people that were lobotomized. They were institutionalized and warehoused and abused. And that's the vision that the Trump administration has for the rest of us. All right. Before we get to Jacob, a word from our sponsors. Aura Frames. Aura Frames, Sam was literally just telling me yesterday that he got this for a family member, an older family member, and they were just like in awe of how amazing it is. And it's a big family, so they can have a slideshow of all of the different members of their family on this Aura frame. And Mother's Day is coming up. The number one thing your mom wants from you is for you to call her. This Mother's Day, you can give her a call, of course, but you can also give her an Aura digital picture frame. I got this maybe 2 Christmases ago. Huge hit. As I mentioned, Sam just got it for family. Huge hit. It's really easy to set up. It takes around 2 minutes to set up the frame using the Aura app. There's free unlimited storage. You can add unlimited photos and videos, invite as many people as you want to a frame. There are no hidden fees or subscriptions. You can upload videos up to 30 seconds long, but also they play live photos. You can add those iPhone live photos and they play right on the frame. There's an embedded speaker as well that can play audio on demand. Aura frames have meticulously calibrated high-resolution displays. The photos look like real prints. Unless you look really closely and see photo transition, you would never know that it is a screen. The frame can be set up basically from anywhere, share photos or videos from any device, and they will instantly appear on the frame, whether it is wherever you are in the world and wherever that frame is in the world. No memory card required. Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. For a limited time, listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off, plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver matte frame. That's Aura, A-U-R-A, frames.com, promo code majority. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Another service that we use here at the Majority Report is really essential for my personal safety and my family's. Delete Me. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everybody vulnerable. Data brokers make a profit off of your data. Your data is a commodity. Anyone on the web can buy your private details. This can lead to identity theft, phishing attempts, harassment, etc. But now you can control your privacy with Delete Me. Your name, contact information, social security number, home addresses, even information about your family members could all be compiled by data brokers and sold online. We want to thank Delete Me for sponsoring today's episode. As a person who exists publicly, and especially as somebody that shares my opinions online, that are sometimes a little inflammatory, I'm hyper aware of safety and security. And it's easier than ever to find personal information about people online. All of this data is hanging out on the internet, and it can have actual consequences in the real world. I started using Delete Me before I even started here, before I even knew that they were a sponsor of this show. It was recommended to me by a bunch of other people in this particular industry. Those MAGA folks, they're no joke. They try to come after you. Delete Me has been an essential tool, and I'm basically a lifetime user of it. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting majority to 64,000. The only way to get 20% off is to text majority to 64,000. That's majority to 64000. Message and data rates may apply. And lastly, spring is springing. It's springing up right now. And fast-growing trees is the best way to celebrate as the flowers bloom. Did you know that Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the United States with thousands of different plants and over 2 million happy customers, including myself, including Sam Seder? They have plants for your yard needs like fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, and so much more. Whatever plants you're interested in, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. Find the perfect fit for your climate and space. Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to get your dream yard. Order online and get your plants delivered directly to your door in just a few days without ever leaving home. Their Alive and Thrive guarantee ensures your plants arrive happy and healthy. That's what happened with me. I got a plant for my bookshelf, low light, great instructions from Fast Growing Trees. I kept it alive inexplicably, probably because it was such high quality and my lack of green thumb could not affect it. And it's right there on my sill. It adds a little bit of life to my apartment. I know Sam has grown trees, apple trees, and many other trees via Fast Growing Trees because he's got a little bit more space than me. But even if you don't have too much space, you can find what works best for your home on Fast Growing Trees, at Fast Growing Trees. And they have a 14-point quality checklist, which ensures you're getting the best quality plants possible. You can talk to a plant expert about your soil type, landscape design, how to take care of your plants, etc. No green thumb required. And if you like to do your own research, their resource center is full of tips and advice from plant experts to help you learn more about your yard's needs, so you know what will thrive in your area and with your yard conditions. Check out their zone finder to see what growing zone you are in. Fast Growing Trees has the best deals, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And listeners to our show get 15% off your first purchase when using the code MAJORITY at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code MAJORITY at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code MAJORITY. Now's the perfect time to plant. Use Majority to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. All right, quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Jacob Silverman. We are back, and we are joined once again by friend of the show, Jacob Silverman, journalist, co-author of the New York Times bestseller Easy Money, Cryptocurrency, Casino Capitalism, and the Golden Age of Fraud, author of the upcoming book Gilded Rage, Elon Musk and the Radicalization of Silicon Valley, coming out in October. Jacob, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Glad to be back.
Glad to have you. Thanks for taking the time to talk about this meme coin scam. Meme coin scam. There we go. Not speaking so well today. But it's just like you've been of course writing about this for so long and following this story. It feels like it hit a new peak with the New York Times report that came out last night that said that Trump is hosting a quote intimate private dinner with the top 220 investors in his meme coin. So this is just like essentially a way to pay to play to get access to the president, but also maybe that's secondary to the fact that his meme coin price surged more than 60% after this announcement because the investors that wanted to have dinner with Donald Trump, they needed to acquire as much of this meme coin as possible. And so Trump cashed in just by announcing this dinner.
Exactly. And that's the important dynamic to note, and that there is some savviness to here, I guess. I mean, they know what they're doing. If not him, then the team behind this token. So they've already been selling access with the dinners at Mar-a-Lago, and this is just another form of that. And I mean, one thing with meme coins is they're pretty ephemeral in nature, and usually there's the initial pump and dump, even with a prominent one like Trump token, but they found a way to breathe new life into it by using it to sell access again to him. So you kind of got to admire the chutzpah, I guess.
I guess. I mean, like, can you take us back to how Trump got involved in crypto altogether? Mm-hmm. Because he used to be pretty against it. He's more, he's the New York guy that likes Phantom of the Opera. He's not up on the new technology that the kids are talking about these days. But it seems like things turned after he lost the election and Melania started getting involved in NFTs. Where did this all start?
It started in 2023 probably, and really came to a fore in 2024 when first his sons and then some of the tech people who increasingly gathered around him and became some of his biggest donors said, hey, there's a lot of money, at least in donations from the crypto industry. Trump had said when he was president in his first term that he thought Bitcoin was a scam and that it competed with the US dollar, both of which are largely true statements. But of course, once he started seeing that the crypto industry was becoming the largest donor to Trump and the Republicans by industry in the 2024 cycle, I think that pretty easily changed his mind. But what was different was the extent to which he became involved in crypto as an entrepreneur and as a businessman. That started during the election cycle, and he launched World Liberty Financial, which had a token associated with it. But he has gone so much farther, I think, than anyone, even in crypto perhaps, or maybe especially in crypto, expected. He's really in the deep end with lots of shady characters.
Can you talk a little bit about some of those shady characters? Who are they?
Yeah. Well, first thing is, I think it's important to say that Trump, all of the various ventures that Trump has in crypto are just generic, like white labeled crypto products with Trump branding. And I think that's one reason why this makes sense for him. You know, this is like putting his name on a school or steaks or vodka or whatever else, but just of a different style. And it's very easy and low effort. So his main company is World Liberty Financial, and he founded it in part with the sons of Steve Witkoff. And Steve Witkoff himself seems to present himself as a backer. He tweets approvingly about deals that they make. He is, of course, Trump's top diplomatic envoy to the Middle East and has done negotiations with Russia. It really does seem like he's mixing business with politics quite a bit. And through World Liberty Financial, it's become kind of this open fund for anyone who wants to put money in Trump's pockets. The most prominent example is probably Justin Sun, who's this kind of notoriously shady crypto entrepreneur who bounces between various island nations. And he does not come to the U.S., or at least did not before. And he was being investigated by the SEC for a major fraud. And he, in two very highly publicized transactions, invested a total of $75 million in World Liberty Financial. Basically, just bought some tokens, gave them the money, and this was celebrated by the Witkoff sons, by Steve Witkoff. You know, and this is really someone who is like on the Sam Bankman-Fried end of the crypto spectrum. He was actually, Sam Bankman-Fried at one point thought he was going to get a bailout package from this guy when everything was falling apart a few years ago. And then, of course, a week later, this was in February, I believe, the SEC paused its case against Sun, the multi-billion-dollar fraud case. So the pay-to-play is pretty clear. There are other people. The guy behind this company called DFW Labs, you know, people who have sort of who have Russian or Chinese nationality, who seem to move money between various jurisdictions, but are headquartered in the UAE or Switzerland or other places like that.
And what's amazing is what I was reading, that this World Liberty Financial company, which was created in August 2024, so right, like just months before the election, they initially tried to create the impression that Trump was not as involved, and then he got more involved publicly after being inaugurated because he's already in power and seems like completely emboldened by this. But they don't even have a platform, and they've raised $500 million is my what I read this morning.
Yeah, there's an extraordinary amount of money just kind of flowing into these various Trump crypto entities. Their World Liberty Financial doesn't really do anything. And like I was saying before, there's nothing innovative here. And most of these platforms are just, or these crypto ventures are just kind of notional, or, you know, like the World Liberty Financial token is what's called, without getting too much into this stuff because it's silly, a governance token. So you pay to buy it, and however many you have, you can supposedly vote on changes to the platform. Well, there's nothing to vote on and nothing to do, and you can't move the token. So this is really just like, you know, a drop box for putting money in Trump's pocket. And then he has a fund, sort of a fintech fund through the Truth Social parent company. He's got the meme coin stuff and this other company called CIC that's managing that. And there's nothing here except just opportunities for minting fake tokens and accepting money from whoever will give it to him.
So I like with this company, or it's just that they're not even producing anything. It's almost like just a shell. Like who else is involved here? Because I remember reading about how I think it was either Javier Milei, I think it was Milei's pump and dump crypto scam involves many of the same players. And for people that don't know who that is, he's the far-right anarcho-capitalist maniacal leader of Argentina who is close with Elon Musk. It seems like Trump is modeling a lot of his actions based on this guy who now over half of the population in Argentina is in poverty based on some of his actions, which also include gutting the administrative state and crypto scams, very similar to Trump. Like, what is that? What's that connection? How much is he borrowing from Milei here?
Quite a bit. So Milei is a connective figure here. He's made common cause with the tech reactionaries who love his sort of crazy right-wing libertarian austerity stuff and his interest in crypto, and with MAGA. And he endorsed a token called Libra. It was not supposed to be an official presidential meme coin, but he endorsed it and was possibly compensated for it. There's a man behind it named Hayden Davis, who's a kind of straight up central casting, ridiculous crypto operator who has been involved with the Melania and Trump tokens, along with a few other people. And there seems to be a developing almost network or kind of service industry for letting or facilitating politicians doing crypto pump and dumps. I have a little piece coming out related to this weekend in Airmail. I've written about Libra and Milei and some of the stuff for The Nation, but again, this is very easy. If you live, at least in the United States, there's no consequence for it. Milei is actually being investigated by his own legislature, and the guy I mentioned, Hayden Davis, who's sort of one of the operators behind these various tokens. They are requesting Interpol red notice for his arrest. Some Argentine lawyers, so we'll see if that happens.
And do we have any idea of who's buying all this stuff? Like, I mean, I know it's all dark money. I know it's under the cloud of secrecy, and the Trump administration is making that easier, dropping all these investigations into crypto firms that the SEC was doing. Like, it seems as if there's just all of this like underlying information that we will not have access to because of the incredibly corrupt nature, historically corrupt nature of this administration.
Yeah, you have a few things going on simultaneously, which is the Trump impunity and immunity from the Supreme Court basically on down. And then he's wiping away all these financial regulations and going to facilitate the passage of crypto bills. And then he's just brazenly kind of doing what he wants. So to me, this is the largest financial scandal in presidential history. I mean, some of this stuff we'll never know, but already we know that Justin's son seemed to pay him off $75 million. There's, you could count some of these other numbers that are available out there, but a lot of this is unknowable without kind of proper investigatory tools or resources behind it, which all the IGs have been fired. The SEC is obviously not going to do anything. So in Congress, the Democrats are in the minority in Congress. I don't know how this gets investigated, much less, prosecuted in a comprehensive way. And so that's why I think it's only going to grow. I mean, Witkoff supposedly has had meetings with Binance, which to me is basically a criminal organization. Its CEO took a plea deal and did a 4-month sentence in federal prison. And they agreed to pay a $4.3 billion fine, which is the biggest corporate fine in U.S. history. And apparently, according to Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, and others, they saw the Justin Sun deal because Justin Sun and the former CEO of Binance are close. They saw that as a model. They said, oh, he was able to pay $75 million, got his SEC situation worked out. And they've had similar conversations about brokering a pardon and then a Trump investment. And like, these are really the companies like that are facilitating, cybercrime, money laundering on a global scale. These aren't just kind of normal crypto players, even by, the lower standards of crypto.
Exactly. And lastly, Jacob, I'm sorry, people really should check out your piece, Welcome to the Slop World, how the hostile internet is driving us crazy. But our next guest has a hard out, so I got to wrap up with you here.
Didn't mean to go long.
No, I went long earlier. It's my fault, per usual. But I really, like, do we know how much money this dude has made, or Trump has made from these scams so far?
It's certainly in the hundreds of millions. I mean, they seem to be able to cash out and move some amount of some of these tokens. The number that's been going around is $100 million in trading fees related to the initial launch of the Trump token through this platform called Meteora, which involved the guy I mentioned behind the Libra token. But you're going to hear a lot of big numbers because in crypto, numbers are kind of fake and everything's manipulated. But easily, I think a few $100 million if they know what they're doing. And
his legal bills were astronomical after the over 90 charges that were levied against him before he won again. So like, this is a way to pay that back. But also, I do think this is his legacy. He wants to be a real rich guy.
Yeah, I mean, this is how you get like $10 billion for nothing, basically, is like you start making your own tokens. Supposedly, they're going to start issuing a stable coin, which is kind of like a digital dollar. We don't have to go into that, but like the ambitions or like the willingness he's willing to go very far. And this is not just a dabbler. This is someone who's like seeking to make billions of dollars and maybe run away with it.
Because the guys at Wall Street think he's a joke. Like the tariff stuff, you see this, right? But this is how you become a real rich guy in the real room, which has always been his ambition. His eyes have always been bigger than his stomach, and that stomach is massive. We've seen it. Like he wants to he overextends himself, whether it's by lying or it's by bankrupting his casinos and going big. This is just another version of that pathology, it seems to me.
Yeah, and I think it'll probably end badly in one way or another. And I think the next crypto collapse will end badly for the larger economy. But he's going to try to grab as much as he can.
Well, Jacob Silverman, really appreciate your time today. Everybody check out Jacob's work, including his latest piece in the Financial Times. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, folks, quick break. And when we come back, we'll be joined by Senate candidate in Michigan, Abdel El Sayed. We are back, and we are joined now by Abdel El Sayed, former Wayne County Public Health Director, co-author of Medicare for All, A Citizen's Guide, now a candidate for United States Senate in Michigan's Democratic primary, just endorsed by Bernie Sanders. Abdul, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Emma, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Thrilled to have you. Really excited about your candidacy. Let's just start there. I mean, what you ran for governor in 2018. Gretchen Whitmer obviously won that primary. What was the reason that you decided to jump back into electoral politics?
I've had the privilege of being in a conversation with folks in Michigan for the last 10 years since I jumped into public service. And the overwhelming realization that you get when you talk to people on the ground is that it just shouldn't be this hard to get by in the richest, most powerful country in the world. It shouldn't be this hard to afford your groceries, shouldn't be this hard to go to a doctor and not have to worry about getting huge levels of medical debt because you did. It shouldn't be this hard to take a big deep breath or take a drink of water and know that those things are going to do more for your body than they take away. It shouldn't be this hard to pull your face up from your phone because corporations spend billions of dollars to keep you looking at it. And I think for all of those reasons, I think we need leadership. And right now we're watching as the very people who've exploited that pain have been making it worse, whether it's passing stock tips to your buddies after destroying the global economy, or it's destroying the best things about American government in the form of the NIH and the cancer research that it funds, or it's the fact that they're disappearing people off the streets. So I'm somebody who never dreamed of being a politician. I dreamt of being a doctor. And I started to realize that the things that were making people sick had a lot more to do with what was happening in our society, which is what led me to public service. I'm somebody who has been building in government, whether it's erasing $700 million in medical debt for Wayne County residents, or it's putting glasses on kids' faces, or it's standing up to corporate polluters. And I think we need somebody who's got the audacity to step up and fight back. And I got receipts there, but also somebody who knows what to build after the wreckage of Trump and Musk and all of their supporters has come by. And so I think right now is the time for leadership. I'm hoping to be able to show that and build on the conversation I've gotten to share and to turn that into public policy that works for people.
Can you speak a little bit about healthcare and your background in providing healthcare for people? We're in this very scary political moment of an assault on science, an assault on researchers, an assault on peer review. I mean, RFK Jr. under Donald Trump is spouting the most insane conspiracy theories that would be laughed out of the room in any professional setting when it comes to healthcare, except for the fact that, I don't know, some podcasters like him. So now he's one of the most powerful people in the country when it comes to determining healthcare. What do you observe with this kind of like anti-intellectualism and this anti-science movement on the right?
Yeah, first, I really want to start at the central premise. RFK Jr. is what happens when you put an internet troll in charge of the nation's public health. And that's exactly how he's going about it. Now, here's the thing. He identifies the problems. Like, the problems he identifies are actually accurate. A lot of us in public health have been trying to spend a lot of time to call people to action when it comes to our extremely broken food system and all the disease that comes downstream of that. The problem, though, is that the way you get right answers in healthcare is to use science to rigorously identify answers to big questions and then to follow where the science goes. But when you throw away the scientific process because you've got a preconceived ideological perspective about how you solve the problem, you get what RFK Jr. is doing. And I worry that it's extremely dangerous. We've got a once in 25 year measles outbreak at the southern border. It's now in 25 different states across the country. And this guy's out here demagoguing vaccines, which are the reason why we had kept diseases like measles and polio and mumps under wraps for so long in this country. What's worse, though, is that they're gutting so much of the cancer research and research on chronic disease and research on autism. That is one of the best things our government does. I know, folks rag on government all the time, but it does some really good things. It just usually does them quietly and in the background. And the NIH is part of that. But I want to help to try and explain why I think RFK and all of the trolls that have helped put him in this place have been able to succeed. It's that in this country, we have failed to address the central biggest challenge when it comes to health and healthcare, that you get monetized for getting sick in this country. We have failed to guarantee basic access to quality healthcare for our country, and people have suffered the consequences. And what that means is that in the midst of a global pandemic, when you come up to them and say, hey, listen, here's a medication that didn't exist a year ago that can protect you from a disease you don't yet have. Their question is, okay, but what about medication for the disease I actually have that I have to get nickeled and dimed for? And it leaves us looking ridiculous because we're not answering the questions to the problems that people know they have. And until we get about solving the problem in this country where too few people have access to high quality healthcare that they don't have to pay at the point of care for, that they don't have to go into debt for, then it's going to erode trust in the science and the public health that we want to do every single day. And so those two things go together. I came to healthcare activism by way of public health. Until we solve the problem of the fact that we pay 20 cents on the dollar, a lot of which goes to the back pockets of corporate CEOs in this country, while too many people go without healthcare, I worry that that trust is going to continue to be eroded, and we're going to continue to get taken advantage of by demagogues like RFK Jr.
Medicare for All, central to your ideology. You wrote a book about it. There was a foreword written by Bernie Sanders, the Citizen's Guide. You can see it back there on your bookshelf. Can you expand a little bit more on, oh, there we go. Can you expand a little bit more on Medicare for All and like how, as a United States Senator, you would attempt to reintroduce that back into the zeitgeist, into the range of what is possible, because, hopefully we elect a Democrat in 2028. But it seems as though the party broadly abandoned healthcare and acted like, hey, we solved it with the Affordable Care Act, and that's that. But obviously there are people who are still hurting and even turning to snake oil salesmen because there's a vacuum in terms of healthcare policy with the Democratic Party.
Yeah, Emma. First, I want to say I'd look forward to joining stalwarts like Senator Sanders, who've been fighting this fight for a very long time, and they've been keeping this flame alive. When it comes to Medicare for All, it should be simple in this country, the richest, most powerful country in the world, to guarantee access to high quality government health insurance for everybody. That's not to say that if your union, for example, negotiated a quality private plan that you liked, that you couldn't keep it. That is to say that if the factory shuts down, you shouldn't be without healthcare, that you can come back to a high quality government plan that supports you from cradle to grave. That should be something we can definitively afford if other countries that don't have nearly the resources that we do can do so. Now, the reason we don't do this thing, even though 60% of all healthcare offered in this country is public through Medicaid or Medicare, is because we've created a system where private health insurance corporations literally garnish our wages every 2 weeks to 4 weeks so that we have the right to pay a deductible, which again, they hide behind these big words, literally money you have to pay to get the healthcare that you thought you already paid for.
Right.
And they profit off that. Every single dollar that corporate CEOs of health insurance companies make, every dollar was a dollar that somebody spent to provide healthcare for themselves and their families. And they don't want to let go of that. So they build corporate PACs, things like 527s and super PACs to corrupt the public conversation. Now, Emma, you know this and you've studied it more even than I have. But anytime there's a public consensus on an issue, and then there's a political consensus that is way off from the public consensus, meaning members of both parties say a thing that's not what the public believes, the difference is usually somebody's money. And in this case, it's the money that corporations can pay to buy access to politicians to literally write their legislation to make sure that we don't get that thing that should be so easy to provide. And then they spend all kinds of money demagoguing us and fear-mongering over what we would lose rather than what we have to gain. We can have nice things. We have to believe it. And we have an opportunity through Medicare for All to finally make good on that guarantee for healthcare for everybody. We can do it. It's the only way that we do it, though, is that we step up to the way that corporations have been able to rig our system against us so they get to profiteer off of us. And we've got to focus on what we can have, not what they tell us we're going to lose. Because at the end of the thing that we have to gain is access to the rest of our lives. The ability to go see a doctor without being told what doctor you can see, or the at risking going into bankruptcy to do it.
Can you talk a little bit more about why a government system would be more efficient? I think that people get scared off by the idea that because of, frankly, things like austerity or other government programs that are needlessly complicated just to avoid doing something that is broad-based and taxes the rich, folks get scared off. But we know that cutting out the middleman of health insurers does provide more equitable outcomes Talk to people about that a little bit.
Yeah. First, I just want to say, I don't know many seniors who graduated into Medicare, turned 65, got their Medicare, and didn't breathe a sigh of relief. Medicare operates at an overhead of about 3%, whereas private health insurance operates at an overhead of about 15%. Literally 15 cents on every dollar we spend on private health insurance goes to pay for some overhead. So much of it goes to pay the tens of millions of dollars that go to the salaries of corporate CEOs. We didn't pay that money so that they could take it. We paid it for our healthcare, which is exactly what Medicare does. Now, don't get me wrong. Corporations are trying to profiteer off Medicare through programs like Medicare Advantage. They're coming for that too. But traditional Medicare is just more efficient. And here's the thing. We rely on that program to provide healthcare for people who need the most healthcare. Traditionally, as you age, you end up needing more healthcare because it tends to be that you get sicker as you get older. So when you get older, you get the system that's way more efficient. But it's when you're younger and healthier, you have to pay a ton so that CEOs can make a lot more off of it. And the reason that Medicare can be so much more efficient, the reason Medicare for All could be so much more efficient is because, well, in a government program, you're not paying a corporate CEO, you're not paying for marketing costs, you're not paying for all of these other things that private companies have to pay for. The other part of it is this. There are about 9,000 healthcare providers in our country, and there are about 700 health insurance companies. You can imagine when they have to bill each other, there's a whole rigmarole that has to happen so that they can talk to each other. And that requires both sides to hire armies of billers on both sides. And those billers cost a ton of money. It's just the crosstalk between them. When you end up having not 700 health insurers, but one, now the billing becomes easy because everybody just bills the government system. And so you end up eliminating a lot of the churn, the cost that has to go into the system. So this could be more efficient. It would enable us to see any doctor we wanted. It would make us all equal healthcare consumers. It would make sure that we could have our healthcare covered without having to worry about a deductible or a copay or a premium. Again, all words that they hide behind so that you don't know all the different ways that they nickel and dime you. We could do so much better if we are willing to embrace what's possible and not fall prey to the cynicism that folks who exploit our pain are so interested in selling to us.
Absolutely. Let's just turn, before we have to let you go, to another topic, back to the race a bit. There's two other candidates who have joined in, or two other major candidates, Representative Haley Stevens, as well as a state senator, Mallory McMorrow. Let's play a little bit of this clip here. This is Haley Stevens being asked by a constituent about her getting support from AIPAC, and this isn't just standard support. She's receiving a lot, and also saying things like, she supports aid to Israel unconditionally, basically. She was asked about this publicly. Here's that clip.
It's your first fourth, and you're walking with the Congresswoman. Yes, oh my gosh, please.
Well, thank you so much for your community service.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I was wondering, with all the support of Republicans and people who are anti-choice and people who are working to disrupt our election systems that AIPAC is doing right now, I'm wondering why you're accepting their support. I'm a Jew, and my family lives here in this community, and I really think that those kinds of candidates are making the Jewish people less safe. I'm wondering why you're accepting their
Well, thank you so much for coming and bringing your kiddo. It's so nice to meet with you.
It's nice to meet you too, but I'm just wondering, I want to make life and this country a safe place for him to grow up in. I'm wondering why you would want to accept their endorsement and $800,000 in ads this year.
Yeah. Guys, I have received, how many endorsements have I received this election? A lot. I think I've got a lot of local labor endorsements and all that.
You are a great representative, and we really appreciate your support. I'm just hoping.
Hi, you guys.
Oh my gosh, hi. This is not, look at a boat. Let's ride the boat.
Okay, so she walked away, literally walked away from that question. Obviously, Michigan has been a major flashpoint in the conversation about Israel's genocide in Gaza, and some of the support or lack thereof for Israel in the state that's been a bit of a dividing line, right? And of course, it came up in the presidential race. What's your stance, and what's your message to voters who may hear statements like that and seeing her walking away from a constituent asking that question about how that fits into your Senate campaign?
Yeah, I tell you, that's hard to watch. I think there are two central questions here. The first is, what should we do with our tax dollars? And the second is, how do we want our democracy to work? When it comes to our tax dollars, I want anybody to think about their local public school and ask yourself whether or not it could benefit from a few $1 million more of investment. And then ask yourself whether or not you think that the best use of our tax dollars is to be sent abroad to foreign militaries to allow them to bomb other kids' schools and other kids when we should be spending it right here on our own. And that really is the question. We just talked about healthcare for a while. And the big thing they want to tell you is that we can't afford it. Well, yeah, we can't afford it if we're sending tens of billions of dollars abroad to a foreign military. And I think that's a real problem. Then the question about how we transact our politics. We know that there's too much money in our politics. There's too much special interest money. And a lot of that money is spent across party lines. And so AIPAC has become just another vehicle by which Republicans can spend in Democratic primaries to pick what Democrats they want to run against. And I'm just saying that anybody running in a Democratic primary should not be accepting money from MAGA to decide what Democrats win or to beat up on other Democrats. And so I hope that everybody in this race will join me in saying that we are not going to accept the MAGA money to beat up on fellow Democrats, and that we believe that special interest money should not be used to decide who our candidates will be. And I'll tell you this, I'm proud that MAGA doesn't want to fight against me, and it tells you something about who they're worried about. And so, they don't want to face me in the general election. They know that if we're willing to have conversations about working people's issue, about guaranteeing people health care, about protecting our air and water, and doing so clearly, honestly, and with a concise and direct appeal to the pain that people are experiencing and how to solve it, that we win elections. And they don't want that. And so they're trying to muddy the message. And it's not surprising to me that they're reaching in. I just hope that fellow Democrats aren't going to accept that money to try and decide who the winner of a Democratic primary will be.
Abdel El Sayed, thank you so much for your time today. How can people support your campaign if they would like to?
I hope that folks will go to abdulforsenate.com. We need your help. If you're here in Michigan, please sign up to volunteer. Sign up to host me at a house party. I'd love to come to your space. And then if you can, from all over the country, $5, $10, I don't take corporate PAC money. So I rely on good people like you. I'm not taking AIPAC money, I'll tell you that much. And they're going to be spending a whole lot of money to beat me because they're afraid of what I have to say about common sense foreign policy and about so many issues affecting Michiganders. So please, abdulforsenate.com. Emma, it was just a privilege to get to share space with you and share a conversation today.
It was great to talk to you again. Thanks so much, Abdul.
Thank you.
All right, with that, folks, we're going to wrap up the free part of this program and head into the fun half.
If you're in Michigan, you got to be on that.
If we have more time with him, I would have, asked, okay, what happens? Because people are getting out early, right? I mean, Gary Peters is retiring. The general election will be next year's midterms, but I'm not sure when the primary is going to be held, sometime next year. The concern is like Mallory McMorrow and Abdel El Sayed, do they split votes? And this pro-Israel Stevens woman gets put to the forefront. And that's my one fear, but we have a lot of time. And I'm hoping that she's, because of this stance, is more marginalized. And then it's a race between those two options, which is definitely better than if Stevens were to come up. Because Slotkin is not my choice. And I do think that Michigan deserves better than two kind of centrist foreign policy hawks for Democrats, honestly. And I don't want to see the state go by the way of Pennsylvania or even Colorado.
Where John Fetterman is saying we need to bomb Iran because we have a window.
Right. Because these are states that have turned blue, and it's been hard work to turn them more blue. And yet there's been a flood of corporate cash in I would say Colorado and Pennsylvania to elevate more corporatist, centrist Democrats.
I mean, that's really the key thing. And, I generally side with David Hogg when it comes to challenging incumbents. Of course, we support AOC and all these sorts of things. The real question is, are we going to continue to allow corporate and AIPAC money to buy these elections? Because if so, like I'm less positive about how good it is that we're challenging incumbents, because I think the incumbents being challenged are going to be like Ilhan Omar, right? Like
right.
So
he did say progressive, but he's being well. I would love to have David on to ask him what's the criteria, because
Right.
I'm in favor of it, but I don't want us to be squishy about what it
it's just
means.
to me it's just downstream of that more fundamental question is
Right.
how are these campaigns being funded, who is allowed to pay/play in them, and is it going to be corporate interests and Israel? And if
Right.
it is, then we have a much more fundamental problem than whether we give deference to people who are incumbents.
Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning?
Oh gosh, you sprung that on me. Well, actually, I'm very excited. Our Sunday show, I believe we're going to release it for patrons on Sunday. Vincent Bevan's talking about the MST, Landless Workers Party in Brazil. He had a great piece in The Nation about that. I have the hat. That is actually the one mentioned in the piece that is very popular. So I'll be wearing that during the interview, actually. And so we'll be talking to him about that.
All right. Sounds good. Check it out. And then you got a big week next week. Should we bring our guest in now? Or you want to just come behind here and so we can do a preview and then we'll hook you up?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Hey,
Hey,
look who it is. All right, Brandon.
We'll let Brandon plug his stuff when he gets on
That's
mic.
the preview. Yeah. Just your face. That's all we needed for right now. On the other side, we'll see Brandon, get him all hooked up in Sam's chair. When Sam's away, we bring in the cool kids. See you on the other side, and Bender will be with us soon. 646-257-3920. We'll open up the phone lines on the other side. See you in the fun half.
Okay, Emma, please.
Well, I feel that my voice is sorely lacking on the majority report.
Wait. Look, Sam is unpopular.
I do deserve a vacation at Disney World. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome Emma to the show.
It is Thursday.
I think you need to take over for Sam.
Yes, please. No. I'm gonna pause you right there. Wait, what? You can't encourage Emma to live like this. And I'll tell you why. So was offered to tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered to tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. What? Tour, sushi, and poker.
Tim's upset.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. So was offered to tour, sushi, and that's what we call the biz. Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Right.
Tour, sushi, and poker.
We're gonna get demonetized.
I just think that what you did to Tim Pool was mean.
Free speech.
That's not what we're about here. Look at how sad he's become now. You shouldn't even talk about it. I think you're responsible.
I probably am in a certain way, but let's get to the meltdown here.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Oh my God.
Tour,
Wow.
Sushi. I'm sorry, I'm losing my fucking mind. So was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Logic.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys. Boy. Tour. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid. Tour. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. Had this debate 7,000 times. A little kid. I think I'm like a little kid. I think I'm like a kid. Tour. I'm losing my fucking mind.
Some people just don't understand.
So I'm not trying to be a dick right now, but I absolutely think the U.S. should be providing me with a wife and kids.
That's not what we're talking about here. Okay, all right.
It's not a fun job. Tour? That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. Willy Wonka tour? That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. That offered a tour? That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. Real thing. That offered a tour?
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Rogan has done it again.
That offered a tour? That's a real thing. That's poker with the boys.
I think he might be blowing it out of proportion.
Real thing. That's poker with the boys. That offered a tour? That's a real thing. That's poker.
Let's go, Joe.
Tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
Take it easy, Dan.
Tour, sushi, and poker.
Things have really gotten out of hand.
Sushi, and poker with the boys.
Delusional.
Tour,
Deluded.
sushi.
You don't have a clue as to what's going on. Live YouTube.
Sam has like the weight of the world on his shoulders. Sam doesn't want to do this show anymore. It was so much easier when the majority report was just you. You were happy.
Let's change the subject.
Rangers and Knicks are doing great.
Now shut up. You don't want people saying reckless things on your program.
That's one of the most difficult parts about this show.
This is a pro-killing podcast.
I'm thinking maybe it's time we bury the hatchet.
Left is best. Ultraviolet.
Tour,
Don't be foolish and don't fucking tweet at me and don't ditch. The way Emma has cucked all of these people, love it.
That's where my heart is. So I wrote my honors thesis about it.
She wrote an honest thesis. I guess I should hand the main mic to you now.
You are to the right of me on foreign policy.
We already fund Israel, dude. Are you against that?
That's a tougher question I have an answer to.
Incredible theme song.
Hi, Bumbler.
Emma Vigeland, absolutely one of my favorite people. Actually, not just in the game, like, period.
We are back, and there we have Brandon in Sam's chair.
Yeah, it's comfortable.
Yeah.
Warm.
That should be warm.
Oh.
Sam just like peed on the chair.
That's
I don't
alpha.
know. I don't know why I
We're
said
talking
that.
about that's alpha.
Marking his territory
Yeah.
before Brandon comes. What's up, Brandon? Welcome back to the United States.
Thank you. You know, sometimes I go by Mr. Worldwide, TM trademark.
You trademarked Mr. Worldwide?
Yeah, you'd be surprised how, you know.
That's how rich you are.
I think
Wow.
Pitbull might have the trademark in some countries.
Yeah, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to get like sued by Pitbull.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
saying you're up to your politics.
Oh my gosh.
what's happening on the discourse?
Well, I mean, in case you haven't been aware of it, we've been streaming pretty consistently. Not today, obviously, because I'm here. But yeah, I mean, everything's going on in the discourse. So if you are not signed up, if you're not subscribing or following or, I don't know, stalking, whatever the nomenclature is for following me online, definitely go over to the YouTube page, you know, check it out, see what's up. We watched some really interesting conspiracy videos
Yeah.
about the Mandela effect recently, and hollow moon theory. So there's that. And then all your favorite politics news stuff as well. So, you know, it has something for everybody.
Oh, right. Yeah. I enjoy your streams. You do it very generously, not to take our audience before
Oh, of
our
course.
show. So if people want a morning primer before the Majority Report, go to the discourse. The E in the is
You can
a
just
3.
I see. So my SEO is terrible, but I added, just like Sam has his name on the Majority Report. If you just search for my name, Brandon Sutton, you can find the channel now on YouTube, and you can subscribe there. Or you can look in the description of this video, and it should be there as well.
It should be
But
a link.
You can just
All
search
right.
for me. It's way easier now. It's way easier.
Way easier. All right. Well, we're going to bring in Matt Binder now. I think we see him. We'll read some IMs while we bring in Binder. This is some good IMs here. Just signed, Company Town, he just signed up to volunteer for El Sayed's campaign. We need better representation if anything is going to change. Love to see that. Love to see that.
Oh, I'll also say check out Dan Osborne if you're in Nebraska, folks, because he is looking for campaign folks.
Oh, definitely do that. Nassau County spokesperson, this midterm will probably go down as one of the most defining elections of modern times. If progressives and anti-big money can't pull away with this momentum, then we may be in big trouble. I think that's true.
We're in big trouble.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a chance to dig out.
We have an opportunity, and we have Matt Binder. Hello, hello. And we can't hear you.
We don't have your sound, Matt. Let me... If you
Hello.
There
Can you hear me now?
There you are.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, cool. I was just gonna say, look, we're all in the studio today.
Yeah. It's so
Hey,
uniform. I
Brandon,
love
how
it.
you doing over there?
It looks like the Hollywood Squares up in
Which
here.
one? I don't know if
Yeah.
I should wave. Like, it's fine.
No, we wish you were here, Binder, but we found out like an hour ago that you were coming in. Well, that's how we do it.
Yeah, it's spontaneous.
And
good.
yeah, it's
all
hard.
good.
To
Also, it would have been harder to get the cameras set up for 3 people. So
It would have. So thanks for taking.
I don't
over
even
for
know
the
how I would have
team.
did it.
What's happening
That's
on
all
your
good.
shows, Binder?
Yeah, last night I had a stream talking about all the news that's been happening this week. There's been a lot of news. For example, talked about the Pope dying, talked about Tesla dying, talked about a lot of things. Check it out at youtube.com/Matt Binder.
All right, check that out, folks. Let's start here. Let's do one. I thought this was important. So, Here is LA City Attorney Heidi Feldstein Soto. And actually, this is really Spectrum One in Los Angeles doing some good reporting locally here. What would you say? So doing some good reporting locally. And she's the city attorney. They uncovered her social media posts, basically showing that she may have some pretty intense anti-Palestinian bias that affected some of her decisions on protesters in Los Angeles. Here is Spectrum News 1 SoCal breaking it down. And credit to the anchor and reporter here, Kate Kagel, don't know how to pronounce it, but great job.
Tried to speak to Feldstein Soto about this at her first press conference in over 3 months.
Yes, Heidi, this is Kate Kagel from Spectrum News 1. I want to ask you about some of the freeway protests that your office is pursuing, the If Not Now protesters.
I was supposed to be out of here at 1 o'clock. I've got back-to-back meetings.
Okay, we're not getting answers from your office on these questions, and we have stories.
I really don't comment on pending litigation, as you know.
In 2023, a union protest blocked traffic outside LAX for hours. City leaders like Councilmember Hugo Soto Martinez participated, placed in handcuffs, but never charged. Flynn has represented traffic blocking activists for 25 years and says her clients have never been prosecuted for peaceful actions, instead told to stay out of trouble in exchange for keeping a clean record. She points to Feldstein Soto's own pro-Israel tweets like this one after October 7th that condemned the attacks and added every nation and every moral person must support Israel defending her people. That
Can you pause it for a sec?
Later deleted.
Kind of a good tell that someone's a total psycho when they refer to a country as like either his or her and they anthropomorphize it. It's just a little weird.
Pathological.
I also couldn't help but notice that she like tagged APAC in that tweet. Like APAC is just like.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Like, love you, buddy. Send me money next time.
Exactly.
All right, keep going.
Support Israel defending her people. That tweet was later deleted.
Of course, public officials have a right to speak on whatever issue they want. But once they come out on one side of something, if they're only criminally charging and going after people who disagree with them, that becomes a problem.
Feldstein Soto disputes the bias allegations.
They're alleging that you're prosecuting them because you disagree with their message. We want to give you an opportunity
to prosecute on content, ma'am. You know that.
In court, her office argued the tweets preceded Israel's military escalation and thus do not necessarily indicate bias against the protesters. But the allegations of bias are not just...
Everyone in this room knew exactly what was going to happen where if people listen to people like her saying stand with Israel right now, and it's exactly what did happen, and everyone was saying actually no, we need to look into whether these sort of conditions provoked this violence and look at going back even further and repairing that damage, which is to say war crimes and stealing land against international law. That stuff, if led to fester, will lash out like this. I'll let it play.
No, I mean, it's a good to point out, like, how we were covering this. Matt and I remember this distinctly. I think this was another week that Sam was out, like, for October 7th, which was another just like, whoa, okay. Wish we had a little bit more support here. But when we were talking about this, like, this is one of the times for a few days after, I basically broke down about it because I said that we know what's about to come. We know the slaughter that's about to come. And it's even exceeded my expectations in terms of just like this genocide being this extreme. But if you have any knowledge and you aren't a Zionist, you knew how brutal they were going to be because of how they mowed the lawn in Gaza previously.
I'll even say some of the Zionists, like Bakari Sellers, you look at what they said directly after October 7th, and they knew that it was going to take... that there was going to be a lot of violence directed at Palestinians and that we need to steal public opinion toward it. I think some of these folks knew.
Yeah, I think they didn't not know about the ways in which Israel was going to respond. They weren't anticipating the dramatic shift in public opinion that was going to make tweets like that just no longer popular. Because I think that's what we're seeing a lot of. People now realizing that the cat's out of the bag when it comes to Israel's public image for Americans, and tweets like that were okay. 2014. Tweets like that were okay 2020. Now they're just suddenly not okay. And so it's not as though people couldn't anticipate the violence. They couldn't anticipate the dramatic shift in public opinion that has occurred since October 7th.
Right.
It's also pretty crazy. It's also pretty crazy to have to delete your October 7th tweet.
Mine is still up. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Like, how deranged does your tweet have to be? Like, you could just been like, my, prayers for the people affected or something like that. Very, very typical thing you would say when something happens like that. But instead, you had to go like balls to the wall, like insanity, like screeching for blood that you needed to delete your tweet. That's pretty insane.
As an LA city attorney, which it
used to be okay. I mean, it used to be okay to tweet like that. It used to be standard to tweet like that. That's how far things have shifted in just that year. Like, that kind of tweet used to be what the situation demanded from our politicians, from our public figures. And now it's different. And now, they're struggling to account for all that difference when it comes to their support for Israel.
Because they just see dollar signs too. And we're at a point where when we saw, I think, hopefully, and this still remains to be seen specifically with the impact of the 2026 midterms, but that the money in and of itself, it has diminishing returns, might be putting it mildly. If there's a spotlight that's put on the fact that a billionaire like Elon Musk or maybe even AIPAC is funding your race, and that's communicated effectively to people, that's a major political liability, even if you're out fundraising your opponent a lot. So the political reality's changed, as you say, and the numbers back it up. A majority of Americans now, according to Pew, have a negative view of the state of Israel, and that includes 50% of Republicans ages 18 to 49, and a majority of Democrats. So I get so sick about seeing Rahm Emanuel and Gavin Newsom and Matt Iglesias and these other pundits or politicians talking about how Democrats need to be responding, really just being majoritarian, looking at polling in a current moment and basing their political ideology around that. It's so craven. But they completely exclude the Israel piece of it because they're not actually earnestly following their own ideology when they say that they want to be popularists. They want it to be basically be excluding economic populism, stuff that would involve taxing the rich, in favor of piecemeal, broadly socially acceptable policy sets.
Yeah, but populists are liars. They were, before the Israel stuff, there was the healthcare stuff that they were just flying in the face of. There's a little bit more of
this.
Yeah,
let's keep going. Oh, and we should say, these are, if not now, protesters. These are Jewish Americans that she is basically deciding to prosecute for peaceful protest and disruptive protests that they hadn't previously pursued whatsoever.
They're alleging that you're prosecuting them because you disagree with their message. We want to give you an opportunity to
prosecute on content, ma'am. You know that.
In court, her office argued the tweets preceded Israel's military escalation and thus do not necessarily indicate bias against the protesters. But the allegations of bias are not just coming from If Not Now. Another incident involved a Thanksgiving Day protest in 2023 outside the home of a prominent Israel lobbyist. A whistleblower from inside the city attorney's office said Feldstein Soto personally called then Chief Michael Moore to allege a prominent pro-Palestinian activist was involved. In a leaked confidential memo that's now part of this case, LAPD said the evidence didn't back her claims. No charges were filed. It's all enough for the judge in If Not Now's case to ask Feldstein Soto to hand over her emails, texts, and memos about the prosecution to determine if she's going after the protesters for their political beliefs.
Thank you, Judge.
It's also a waste of taxpayer money, by the way.
Right.
She's doing this on behalf of the city. And you can't, and what's incredible about this action too is that they're not even really, I don't know what the facts of the case are, but you can't allege anti-Semitism if you're being, well, I mean, none of this is honest, but these are Jewish protesters. And so that's what I think it makes it especially important to highlight, which is that, no, this is not about their idea. Well, this is not about hatred or anything like that, obviously. This is about going after their political speech.
Also, I mean, not to be that person, but until recently, anti-Semitism is not illegal. It's not illegal to be a member of the Klan. It's not illegal to be a member of the Ku Klux Klan, marching through Jewish neighborhoods all across the country. It's only when you speak out against Israel specifically that suddenly it's illegal to be anti-Semitic. That's the only definition of it they're interested in promoting.
Yep.
And I just want to say,
I mean,
go ahead,
you can just look at how this administration as a whole, the Trump administration, is pursuing Palestinian activists legally, whether it be immigration or in cases like this. Yet, like when he was president back in his first term, he was defending the people marching and chanting "Jews will not replace us." I mean, it's crystal clear exactly what they're going after, and it's not anti-Semitism.
No, everybody. This is every single person that accuses these protests of being anti-Semitic are themselves a genocidal, anti-Palestinian racist. That is from this person in this video we just watched to Joe Biden's special envoy for anti-Semitism. I believe her name is Deborah Lipstadt, who is a beeper joke-making Zionist. That's the person we're supposed to take cues from about anti-hatred. There is not a single person who has accused any of these protests, smeared, let's call it, as being anti-Semitic. That is not themselves an anti-Palestinian genocidal racist. And we need to not be defensive and point the finger directly back at them. Anyone that accuses you of being anti-Semitic is, during a genocide of Palestinians, an anti-Palestinian racist.
And it even goes further than that. A lot of these people are virulent Islamophobes and anti-Arabs. Like it's broader than just Palestine and the Palestinians.
It is.
Absolutely.
I mean, and this it's very easy, I think, for anybody who isn't a MAGA person or a Republican or a fascist to be against racism domestically, because there is some sort of like kind of cultural understanding and there's like a social contract about it where that is well within the scope of liberal thought. But we have deep racism towards the global South and a lack of understanding about not the global South, but also Middle Easterners and Arab people in general, Muslim people, particularly because they have been the brunt of our imperialist wars for basically the entire time I've been alive. But also because of 9/11 and the war on terror, which escalated that kind of racism.
Not unrelated to Zionists.
No.
In our country. I mean, on the day of 9/11, you had Project for a New American Century people who primarily concerned with Israel saying, hey, it's the Palestinians that did it.
It's a lot easier to examine, I think, racism within a very specific, safe context domestically. But there are a lot of folks who identify as liberal who are uncomfortable with their chauvinist, often classist views that mixing with their racism towards Muslim and Arab people, where we view ourselves as more cosmopolitan, as more advanced, as a civilization, as a shining city on a hill, and these Arab hordes and the way that they make their women dress, like that's the kind of thing that you would regularly hear from liberals who view themselves as broadly anti-racist. This Feldstein Soto person has an election coming up in 2026. There is a candidate who just filed paperwork named Marissa Roy. I want to highlight that. And she specifically, it appears, is challenging her on, from a progressive perspective. Roy says Feldstein Soto has failed us in so many ways. She said Feldstein Soto has missed opportunities to stand up to the Trump administration, worked to block the construction of affordable housing, and prosecuted journalists and pro-Palestinian protesters. So this campaign was announced a month ago. If folks are in the LA area and want to get this person out of a position of power, and you have the ability to vote for Marissa Roy, I would check out her race, because next year is coming very soon.
And I want to stress too, because I think winning over like liberals, especially now with liberals being so anti-Trump and open to even more progressive messaging, I think it's super important right now to stress exactly how much these type of people are aligned with Trump and the Republicans and the entire administration. I mean, the woman that Matt Leck just brought up before, Biden's like anti-Semitism or anti-hate person or whatever she is, she's out there giving interviews about how she supports Trump's immigration policies.
Let's
to
pull that up. Yeah.
Anyone who they deem being anti-Israel. Like, she outwardly supported these pro-Palestinian students being deported, and she's out there backing it. I mean, we need to be as clear as possible that these are the people that helped bring in Trump 2.0. Trump's second term is not possible with these people. It is crystal clear, especially with how we know how relevant the lack of young people coming out for Democrats in 2024 was. And a major reason for that was because of the administration's position on Israel and Palestine.
Yeah. Liberal Zionists have enabled fascism, and fascism abroad comes back, or slaughter abroad, violence abroad is turned internally, especially when people raise the alarm about it. We're still waiting, honestly, on full confirmation before we report on it about what's happening at the University of Michigan. But there is deeply, deeply disturbing footage that came out yesterday of what appears to be cops busting down the door of a house near or on the campus of the University of Michigan that was engaged in pro-Palestine activism. But this is the interview with Isaac Chotiner, who embarrassed. This is not the.
This is an earlier one. She did this is the one that first got my attention with Forward, saying I'm coming down smack dab in the middle. I don't oppose many of the things that are being done. I just wish they would have been done more deftly with regards to the attacking the students with visas for coming out in defense of pro-Palestine. I'll find some quotes from the Chotiner now.
I sent the link.
And I think that's even the better quote from her. There's a more recent one, like you were saying, that's even worse.
Yeah, let's start. I'll read it and Matt will bring it up. But these are the quotes here. Chotiner, who has embarrassed a lot of people in these interviews, I don't know why they keep agreeing to it, does great journalism at The New Yorker, asks her, what do you think the Trump administration is doing to fight anti-Semitism and in that sense uphold democracy? This is Deborah Lipstadt, so same person, right? Just double checking that that's the case. It's calling universities to account. And if you look at the first demands it made of Columbia, what's striking about those things, like an end to encampments and masks, those were things that Columbia students have been asking for a very long time. So I was pleased by that, because they were asking the university to live up to its own standards. I've been told by people who were close to the university presidents and administrators that many of them felt those were legitimate demands that should have been seen earlier. So I don't have any gripe with those. By the way, Columbia early on, a month after October 7th, banned Jewish Voices for Peace from their campus to say that they were fighting anti-Semitism. And then Chotiner says, you are a smart person. Do you seriously believe that the Trump administration cares about anti-Semitism? I'm a little confused here. Yeah, I don't know. They haven't spoken to me. They haven't consulted with me.
Narcissist freak.
So all I can judge is but Deborah, your entire career has been judging people for anti-Semitism, in some cases very effectively. The president hosted white supremacists for dinner. Elon Musk made what appeared to be a Nazi salute. Surely you can look into their souls here. I have called that out. Okay, but more broadly, can you make some sort of judgment? Yes, no, there certainly has been a disturbing tendency, whether it's whatever Elon Musk was doing with his arm.
Well, whatever he was doing.
Whatever, who knows?
Yeah.
Who can say?
Who can see? Who can believe their lying eyes? Or when he appeared on video at a campaign event for the far right in Germany. There are a lot of examples. They're disturbing and they're bothersome.
This is cognitive dissonance at work.
Yeah.
Like, you're trying to, this is like the am I the baddies moment.
Right. Yeah.
She is.
So, people should check out that full interview. It's It's really great.
She
He
made
keeps
beeper
pushing her.
jokes back, last fall. Despicable woman, and yet we're meant to seriously sit down and take lectures from people like this about our hatred and our hearts.
There was another part. This is what I wanted to get to. Go to the El Salvador part and the Marco Rubio part. You said some nice things about Secretary of State Marco Rubio. What's your reading been of him? As a senator, he has a very strong record on fighting anti-Semitism. I know there are many people, including Democrats in Florida, who appreciated his stance. What's happening now is I think, I can't judge, but let me put it this way. I would hope that he would continue to maintain the strong stance he took when he was a senator. You can judge him about, say, tweeting happily about people being sent to a horrific prison in El Salvador, right? Look, there's no reason. Look, when you take someone off the street who's not supposed to be taken off the street and you deport them, you make a mistake. I come from a tradition and a personal belief that when you make a mistake, you say, I made a mistake, we're going to fix it. And that's disturbing. Trotner, they may not care if they made a mistake. That's the issue. Off the record and not for quotation. So she gives a comment off the record. Trotner responds, is there a reason you don't want to say that on the record? Yeah, I don't, because I'm still, I don't want to give people a chance. There's some people I know, including good friends of mine, who suffer from what the Republicans would call, Trump derangement syndrome? Anything he does is bad. Look, he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, so I give him credit for that. I do give him credit for that. I'm not going to say just because it's the Trump administration, it's bad. So that's her refusing to criticize him basically disappearing people to El Salvador. And you see how that marries very neatly with the disappearances of pro-Palestine protesters who she would call anti-Semitic. You see how Biden's anti-Semitism person is way, way closer to the Trump administration than it is to anybody on the progressive left by many miles. And that is how liberal Zionists have enabled fascism right here in this interview.
As a fifth column.
I mean, the disappearances of undocumented and documented immigrants to El Salvador is not a discrete issue from the expulsions and the exiling of legal residents for their anti-Israeli genocide of Palestinian stance. It's all part of the Trump administration's effort to just lower the standard, lower the bar for what it takes to formally sanction people in the United States of America for political positions that they just don't like or just their identity. Yeah. And they're working on various vectors to do that, various legal justifications, various mechanisms. And with the anti-Israel protest stuff, they know it gets people and liberal Zionists and some liberals on their side because they are, their understanding of racism and their understanding of bigotry is so rooted in Democratic Party alignment. Like I align with the right institutions like AIPAC, like the ADL, like, the Democratic Party. I align with the right people like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, and anything outside of that is irrelevant to my understanding of what racism and bigotry and fascism is. And, that's a big weapon the Democratic Party has against the left and sometimes against the far right. But obviously the way in which they use it only empowers the far right to go further and further to erode our rights.
The only difference between Ben Gvir and a woman like this is Ben Gvir has the, does us the justice of being honest about what he believes. When she goes off the record, it's because she is a liar. She knows that she can't actually put a public face on what she believes privately and needs to dress it up. It's disgusting because every liberal Zionist, Ben Gvir knows, starve them. Who gives a fuck? Liberal Zionists are here. The only function they serve is to lie to the people who are bankrolling this, which is all of us, that there's actually some sort of redeemable way to do Zionism. No, Zionism is about creating a majority of Jews in an area there is not one. That's why they can't be clear about where exactly their borders is, because sometimes they need to move them back, sometimes they need to move them forward, depending on how they can adjust the demographics. They are attacking a demographic of people, and that is provoking terrorism. They are not fighting terrorism. And until we are clear about this, we're not going to be able to oppose fascism in this country. We're just not. A.G. Nessel, we think it's a coincidence that this is happening. No, you cannot trust these people. You cannot trust anyone who says, I think Israel should exist as it does, which is, again, to say through conquest and war crimes, they're taking land. We support that. That is just someone that can't be part of this coalition.
Well, I also think that, unlike Ben Gvir, some liberal Zionists and people like this understand that these, this extrajudicial or extraordinary rendition of college students makes people anti-Israel. They understand that that's why this could be done more deftly things comes in, where they understand these videos of, for example, Ramesa Öztürk being black bagged by plainclothes, ICE agents or whatever. It doesn't look good. It's not the kind of PR you need right now when people are already turning against Israel domestically, because it's very, very disturbing. And so their argument is not against the actual material policy. The argument is against the way it's being done. I wouldn't imagine some liberal Zionists would prefer the Biden administration's mechanism for doing stuff like this.
The schools can just kick them out.
Schools should expel them, and then they lose their student visas, and then they just don't get renewed, and then people just don't see it and hear about it, and so it's not that big of a deal. The way Trump is doing it, I think appeals very much to the Ben Gvir types, very much to Netanyahu types, very much to the militant far right. But I even see Republicans and people who we would normally think of as being incredibly regressive in their politics going this is a step too far. And I think amongst some of the Democrats who do support Israel, they understand that it's making them further to the right than, someone like I can't even think of a good example of the right-wing columnists who are going up against this, but it makes them further to the right than they would like to imagine themselves to be. And they also know it turns people off. It's turning people off of the whole project.
Stevens. Maybe Brett Stevens, because oddly, Bill Kristol, that was the guy. He's now saying maybe we should apologize to the abolish ICE people.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So we have to. He's temporarily removed from our example of bad conservative pundit that's treated seriously by liberals. Well, let's read some IMs and then we'll get to that. I don't think we'll take calls today, guys. We have Brandon in studio. It's a little hard to.
I have phone shyness. We can't do it.
Yeah, we have to respect. We have to respect Brandon here.
Text in.
It's sometimes being on the phone is anxiety inducing. I got so used to, if I'm doing pickup from a restaurant, doing it on my phone and then doing pickup, but sometimes you have to call some places and I always freeze up. Am I saying the wrong thing? It's bad. Probably we need to be more social.
I think you need to give yourself a little bit more slack and understand that the person on the opposite end of that phone call is not judging you so severely because you said the wrong rice order or something.
Well, but that's a window a little bit into my personal psychology of self-flagellation.
I had a friend who moved here to New York and they were moving a bunch of stuff over the subway and they kind of made a helter-skelter of it and dropped stuff in front of people and they were embarrassed. I'm like, 0 people from that train will think about this
or remember you.
Even to this point, we're talking about it right now.
And even if they do, who cares? You'll never see them again. Who cares? Who cares what they think?
But it's oddly just doing this job has made me more paranoid about maybe somebody sees me trip or something they know me from the show.
Oh, that would be awful. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't mind it. If someone sees me trip, all I go is all I think is they go oh, look at that asshole, and it's they're right.
They're right.
They're correct.
If there was ever anyone with a video camera recording me when I'm coaching my son's soccer team or during a game, that would end my career.
Oh, do you go mad dad? Do you get really into it?
Oh, I get really into it. Yeah, I'm yelling plays at them, and it's
they have plays
it's an
in
experience.
Soccer?
It's fun though.
Wow.
Yeah, they got
kick it. Run. That's all I can think of the play would be.
You are really losing jock credibility here. I guess you're just more the lifting guy, not the jock guy. Those should not be conflated.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. It's a different subsect of athleticism. Understood.
Logan Soy, can we please get a shofar for Kneecap, who have managed to piss off right-wingers and Zionists while also getting out their fuck Israel and pro-free Palestine, anti-genocide message at Coachella. Up the boys. I'm about to pull that
They
up.
made a new fan.
Hey, here we go. Shofar to Kneecap.
I hadn't seen the movie, and I now I really want to see it.
I don't know. There's a movie?
Is it not the Kneecap movie?
Yes, there's a movie, and it won a bunch of awards, actually. I think at Sundance.
Related to the band?
Yeah, it's sort of like a docu-fiction they made about themselves or with a filmmaker. They participated in a
hell yeah.
fictionalized.
Oh, now I want to see it.
I've heard really good things about it. This is not like that the monkey one that came out
about Robbie Williams.
Yeah, who I still don't know who that is.
I know who he is less after that movie.
Yeah.
Right, and they were like, he's notoriously not big in the United States, and the executives were wondering why it bombed. It's like, because of the first sentence, because everything, the stuff that everybody knows about Robbie Williams. But anyway,
wait, go back to the kneecap thing for 1 second.
Yeah,
Did you see the insane Sharon Osbourne rant online about it?
No.
Like Sharon Osbourne, she said, why did these bands? First of all, she's advocating for their work visa to be revoked over this. And she's also criticized Green Day, and she's wondering, why do these bands feel like they should be political? It's not about music. It's not about politics at a festival. She's trying to make a distinction between, if it's your own show, you can be as political as you want. But at a festival, you cannot be political. No politics at a festival.
Think about the corporate sponsors at the festival. Think about that.
You saw Kalani got disinvited from Cornell.
Yeah.
This stuff all seems so like irrationally post hoc justifications, because a lot of people just don't understand why they support Israel. They don't understand, or at least they're not able to articulate why they support it so strongly, because they've just been indoctrinated since they were very young, either because they're Christian evangelicals, which I know Sharon Osbourne isn't, or they just grew up in that generation where they were told to uncritically support Israel by whatever powers that be in their country were taking money from AIPAC or the Israel lobby or the military industrial complex lobby. And so they can't explain in any real coherent way why they're against like this kind of stuff.
But maybe she's just reflexively anti-Irish as a Brit herself. So Kneecap is an Irish band. Now this story has made its way to the couches of Fox and Friends. Here they are, very old men yelling at clouds, or at least
the clutching pearl section.
Yes, clutching their pearls so the old men watching on their couches can yell at clouds about Israel or about pro-Palestine demonstration.
Thing is, look, if Green Day, if Kneecap, which is a band I've never even heard of, if they want to be for the Palestinian people, then they shouldn't be anti-Israel. They should be anti-Hamas. And to see on stage a large billboard that says F Israel.
Unreal.
It's unreal. No, this didn't happen in Nazi Germany in the 1930s. This was in 2025 in America. Beyond staggering.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you was, how do we combat this with young people? I feel like we can see how it got here, which is the absolute. But how do we combat it now? How do we?
I would have loved to her finish that thought. We see how it got here. The absolute what?
So that's tied for 5th place right there on the right, is it not?
Right. Apparently, she's a music expert now.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
He's tied for 5th place. Wonders why there was. This is not Nazi Germany with
Riley
the anti-Israel billboards. When was Israel founded, Miss Riley? I think you should look into that. Yeah.
It's really a great thing that she said that, actually, because it's a very easy reason why this wouldn't be allowed in Nazi Germany, because there was no Israel.
Well, a lot of people do not know that. A lot of people conflate Israel as it exists now with like Israel from the Bible, as they have not read either. So they just go, oh no, like this must be the same Israel that we read about in like Sunday school.
Or you're just giving her way too much credit, where this pea brain thinks Israel equals Jewish.
Also, some Zionists thought that they might be able to work with the Nazis, but that's not ready for that conversation.
Not ready for that conversation. I mean, don't look up Herzl's views on Jews. Don't look up what Netanyahu said about the Palestinians, where he erroneously claims, and this is like oddly kind of pairs nicely with this idiot's argument, that the Palestinian Grand Mufti gave Hitler the idea to exterminate the Jews. So the Prime Minister of Israel regularly engages in Holocaust revisionist history to downplay what the Nazis did, to overinflate the immorality of the Palestinians by contrast, falsely. That's not something that happened. The idea that he can talk about anti-Semitism and also say that Hitler didn't actually want to kill the Jews. It was an idea that he cribbed from the Palestinians.
That nasty mufti.
Says everything you need to know.
Well, that's a very attractive narrative for like racist, right? For like racist, for Europeans, for like racists in the U.S. People who don't self-identify as racist, to like externalize the anti-Semitism that exists within Western society, right? That led to the Holocaust. That was never really dismantled after the Holocaust. It was just, you know, treated as though, I mean, and by it, I mean the Holocaust was treated as though it was like an, you know, an eccentricity of modernity. It was outside of Western tradition. It was, there has never been anything like that in Europe. There has never been anything like that in the United States of America. And if you think there has, it's because you are in fact an anti-Semitic bigot. They don't want you to think about King Leopold in Africa. They don't want you to think about the extermination of the Native Americans in the United States of America. They don't want you to think about any of the colonial projects, including the genocide or the attempted genocide of Indian people by the UK. They want you to think that genocide is something that just does not happen or is not practiced by the very, very modern and civilized West. It's the practice of barbarians in the global South.
Because they view the genocides that you referred to as necessary to building the West and the construction of the West.
Absolutely.
And so when you only think about and you teach genocide as exclusively about the Holocaust in this country, which it's one of the worst genocides in the history of the world. It's a horrific and heavily industrialized, but it's also there to exclude all of the other ones that you just referred to, because it allows people to further dehumanize people in the global South today and not criticize capitalism or our exploitation of people in the global South, because they are outside and the barbarity that is inflicted upon them by the West is outside of everybody's minds, basically, and cultural understanding of what slaughter looks like.
You look up this goes back long time before Israel, and specifically Zionist massacres of what they considered the Canaanites, which is to say, look at the Mystic Massacre in Connecticut, when basically Massachusetts folks, colonists, just set a village of women and children on fire.
Yeah.
This is the history we live in. And I just love that Riley Gaines is the expert here, a woman who has to play the victim for only, let me check my watch, 40 more years about a event she did in college. That's her career for now.
Does she even swim anymore? Does she even like swim?
No, I mean, she's been sapped of her will to swim.
Happens to me too.
You know what was allowed though in Nazi Germany though? You know what was allowed in Nazi Germany though, Riley Gaines, the dehumanization of trans people.
Yes.
You should look into that.
That was one of the first targets of the Nazi regime, was the attacks on, I think it was a trans-affirming clinic in Germany, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So.
But that also maybe ties into why so many of these, pro-Israel types love to downplay Nazi Germany in order to demonize the pro-Palestinian position, which is an amazing thing to do, to both play to what Brandon's point was, which is absolutely on point, that the Holocaust is used as the ultimate to sort of downplay other genocides. Yet at the same time, it's almost like they're trying to like kill two birds with one stone. They constantly, at the other side of their mouth, downplay it in order to make the pro-Palestinian cause somehow look even more demonic or horrible.
Yeah.
I was gonna say they also seem to be baffled why an Irish band would have this pro-Palestinian sentiment. It's important to mention, the long history of anti-colonialism in Ireland, going all the way back to, the British conquest and imperial project in Ireland. So.
And the forced starvation that they very much see in the Palestinian experience. This is it's a threat to connect also the Irish struggle with the Palestinian struggle, because I will just say this, anecdotal. I have somebody in my family who read that book Say Anything, which is about the IRA, and who was not sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, and called me up and was saying, I think I understand a little bit more about Palestinian resistance, because when you put it within a white context or within that context, it makes people who might not be examining their Islamophobia a little bit more primed to understand it.
Well, is the person you're talking about like an American-born Irish person?
It's an American-born white person, not Irish.
Okay. Well, I was going to say the disconnect for conservatives is with why Irish people, like Irish people from Ireland, support the Palestinian cause so much is often also because American Irish people tend to be more conservative, and so that disconnect is they just don't understand where it comes from.
Let's play the rest of the clip, and I want to get back to the Mandela point.
Yeah.
This didn't happen in Nazi Germany in the 1930s. This was in 2025 in America. Beyond staggering.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you was, how do we combat this with young people? I feel like we can see how it got here, which is the absolute. But how do we combat it now? How do we?
Like, what was she going to say
I
there?
guess her. What does Riley Gaines know about it?
That is fascinating, but like this, like we see how it got here. The absolute like the volume of dead kids I'm seeing on social media that Israel's killing. How could she have finished this sentence? But anyway, let's see what.
But they're like they don't see those primary sources of like children being slaughtered because everybody in their like who's watching the show is super old. If you're watching Fox and Friends, and they're threatened by not being able to filter some of that information for their audience in the same way that showing caskets during the Iraq War was banned.
The absolute. How do we combat it now? How do we turn these young people around?
Well, I think we have to remove these activists from these authority positions. I think that's the best word for it. We've seen these rogue activist judges. Of course, that's been pretty heavily reported on. People are beginning to open their eyes, but these activists have infiltrated into academia, these large, prestigious, at one point maybe considered prestigious academic institutions.
Like Coachella.
We have to remove them and, of course, reinstill the values of education. I mean, it's really as simple as that.
And the Iraq.
Just filibustering.
Yeah, I mean, I do love how they turn to like academics. This is all about like left-wing academics and left-wing cultural icons.
Activist judges.
Activist judges. Because it just mirrors what the right has always said about academia. It mirrors what the right has always had a problem with about sort of youth culture and just popular culture generally, which is it skews progressive. It skews towards the left. It skews, towards the far end of liberalism. And unlike Fox News and unlike, our government, there's no like inherent need for like conservative opinions to be exist to counterbalance it for one reason or another.
100%.
Yeah, the thing you were saying about with liberals and not really understanding like and sort of this idea that you have to be sort of Gandhian style pacifist in order to have a just cause in the world. There's a complete the real Mandela effect is how nobody understands who Mandela actually was and what the ANC was and the type of struggle that they fought, which included things like the MK, Mkanto Wesizwe or something like that, like the threat of like sabotage and things like that. In A Long Walk to Freedom, Nelson Mandela's autobiography that everybody should read, there's a chapter very, very straightforwardly. He says, the repression that we were facing from the white supremacist South African government was so extreme that we went off of strictly nonviolent methods, and we considered things like terrorism, and unfortunately we realized that that would have a negative impact on our cause. But things like sabotage, things like infiltrations, or things like violent resistance to an apartheid state are on the table. And that's just the world we live in. We don't have a Disney World where it's like 12 angry men and then one person just has the right ideas and all of a sudden the world decides, well, Palestinian has a right to its own fucking borders.
Well, I mean, that's a great point. I think just to echo your point, there are two things at play here for me, which is the first is that Americans have had the very concept of critical empathy removed from like the education system, both structurally and like pedagogically, in the sense that like people cannot relate to other people. They cannot relate to the struggles of other people unless they superficially resemble them one way or another. And that is just enculturated in people as though it's something positive, like, oh, I have to experience it myself for me to understand it, when it just makes you incredibly easy to scam. We see it in crypto. We see it with the MAGA voters. We see it all over the place. People just not fully being able to understand something is bad unless it happens to them or someone they know very directly. And the second is, the idea of peaceful protest has been, I think, weaponized against activists in an incredibly ahistorical way.
Yeah.
Because first of all, like, protesting itself can be considered like at least indexing violence. The idea of getting people into the streets, like millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people, a critical mass mass of people is a demonstration of power, a demonstration of force. And most of the successful non-violent political movements have at the very least indexed the possibility of violence in history. You know, the end of slavery, abolitionist movement had the context of the Haitian Revolution. The civil rights movement had the context of a lot of discord around the country. You know, it wasn't just Martin Luther King Jr. saying, you know, we're going to protest peacefully. There were other activists who were saying, if that doesn't work, we're going to do things a lot less peacefully. And then on the other side of that, it allows people to pretend as though those in power are doing the wrong thing. They're being oppressive simply as the result of a lack of knowledge. Like, oh, it's, you know, we have to get the right information to the right people, and then they'll just wake up to the problem as it exists. And so it prevents people from being able or having to come to the real conclusion that the people in power already know, they just don't care. You know, or they actively support it. Like, you know, you can pretend, oh, Joe Biden just doesn't know how bad it is. You know, Kamala Harris doesn't know how bad it is. Donald Trump just doesn't know how bad it is. And you see that across a bunch of issues. It's like, yes, they do. They just don't care.
Yeah, it's like when Joe Biden, they're trying to show, some Palestinian activists were like, hey, can you look at these pictures of dead kids? He's like, I saw those pictures and they were brand new. He doesn't care.
Yeah, it's this, that's liberalism though, right? Where it's essentially this, mendacious naivete that you know, I, as somebody that's like starting my, you know, political journey in a more liberal area of thought, like that is basically what it is, which is that it's why there's so many lawyers that are liberals too, where they just think the merits of the argument win on their face, and that doing politics or the struggle that is involved in politics is inherently beneath us. It's why the Democrats are incapable of meeting this moment with Donald Trump and beating back his fascism, because they think like this is like negotiating a contract or a law, you know, or some sort of merger essentially, where it's like Chuck Schumer will meet the Republicans halfway and there will be some goodwill down the line in the future or whatever, as opposed to like, no, there are sometimes moments where violence and that kind of struggle is what is necessary. And you can read that in Mandela's work, but also the way that the Black Panthers and even Malcolm X have been erased in many ways from the history books in terms of what we teach people. And Martin Luther King's image is flattened and distorted. There's a reason that Ronald Reagan was the president when Martin Luther King Day became a federal holiday. And that is because that was a, I think, conscious effort by conservatives to paper over the struggle of the civil rights movement to create a mascot that would be not threatening for them, even though it completely abandoned the realities and the complexities of MLK's ideology, including and especially his war on poverty towards the end of his life and his anti-Vietnam War activism. So that is a part of like manufacturing consent, just to boil it down to what we've all read with Chomsky, is that effort to completely replace history with one that's less threatening to power, with a narrative that's less threatening to power. So,
but also Riley Gaines makes some good points.
Yeah.
Isn't her husband about to be deported though? Because like her husband is a British citizen who was here like on a student visa, and last I heard, like he was, you know, on the chopping block because he couldn't get a green card because he wasn't vaccinated or something.
Well,
that's commitment to the bit, folks.
That would be, yeah. We'll have to watch this space for that. Gold Rush John, Say Nothing was the book. The Hulu series based on it is worth watching as well. Say Anything is the movie where John Cusack, creeps up with a boombox over his head blasting Peter Gabriel.
What did you say?
I said Say Anything instead of Say Nothing, which was the book. But I mean, I called Ashton, the Saratoga guy, Ashton Genty, the other day, who is a running back who's going to be taken in the top 15 in the draft tonight. So there's just only so much.
My favorite Revolutionary War hero, Isaac Bruce.
Just watch out for more of these, because like I'm only 31 and my brain is not getting better from this point on. There will be a lot more of that to come. Ramona Frankenstein for Pope says, really fun to see Riley Gaines equate anti-Zionism to Nazism. I wonder how she feels about the Nazis and their views on trans people. I actually don't. I don't give a shit what some loser thinks about anything. Enjoy the last few gasps of relevance you have left, Riley. Yeah, she's not even a talented broadcaster, at least from that clip. Although I'm not surprised. She met the blonde quota, and that was fine by them. Jewish anti-fascist says, breaking news, CUNY students at CCNY have established a new pro-Palestine encampment on the campus quad. Student organizers are requesting all hands on deck to help hold the space. Anyone in the city who's available, head up to CCNY ASAP. That's awesome. Do that. Mad Dog, did you guys see Matt Lieb's video making fun of people upset over kneecap? Hilarious. I didn't, but everyone should check out Matt.
He's so funny, though.
He's awesome. Partner of our friend Francesca Fiorentini. Also, he's a friend of ours too. Check out Bad Hasbara.
We have to play the I'm bad now thing. I gotta go find it.
Oh, please do.
I mean, he called it.
He did. Dave from Jamaica, kneecap's pretty good. Gaelic interspersed with English lyrics. Cool.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, because I'm just out of the music scene. I don't read blogs anymore. I'm curious how people would describe their sort of background, or I mean the music. What is it like? Is that like, I don't know. You got Russ?
I've seen them actually play a concert before. It seems kind of like grime, like rap, like UK rap grime mixed with like, I don't know, punk or something.
Yeah, which I dig, because I like gigs and like that sort of stuff.
Drum and bass is in there.
Luke from Oregon says, I had a dude from Lockheed Martin reach out to help prototype a new product. Easiest no reply ever. Mia Pink, I was trying to give Deborah Lipstadt a bit of grace post October 7th because she was born in 1947 and is of a certain age. She spent her life fighting academia, whose goal is to erase the Holocaust. It never happened. When I heard her make the beeper comment, the rage of anger I felt from my toes all the way up through my heart cannot be quantified. I felt duped. She exudes hatred.
It's remarkable. She is a case study in how somebody can devote their life to something that I, on the surface, completely align with, and then actually be a similar kind of monster, frankly.
Right.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Care got on Biden a while ago saying, hey, this woman's making beeper jokes. Can you maybe name a new anti-Semitism envoy? But the truth is, like, I don't know how many liberal Zionists will be better than what she's provided.
She's a great example of the opposite type of person we were just discussing before. How some people need it to happen to them, or happen in the context of it can happen to them, for them to understand the struggle of somebody else. This is the opposite. Sometimes going through an atrocity actually doesn't make you a better person. You just strictly care about that atrocity happening to you and your family, and you don't give a shit about anybody else.
100%. With that said, since it is the fun half, we've played this probably 3 times before, but it never gets old. Our buddy Matt Lieb. This must have happened like in the few months after October 7th when he posted this.
Yeah, probably like December or something like that.
Incredible.
So I'm a liberal Zionist, and I have to say that I actually do agree with a lot of what the pro-Palestinian left has to say about Israel. The occupation is awful and it needs to end. The settlers are crazy, and we have to do something about that. Netanyahu is a criminal. He's going to lead Israel to ruin. The 17-year siege of Gaza has been brutal, and it is completely unconscionable. I agree that Israel is essentially, in parts of it, an apartheid state. But like, the one thing is, after the 7th, the thing is that I don't care anymore. I'm bad now. Because, here's the thing. After the 7th, I just kind of realized if it's us or them, then it's got to be us. No more them. I never thought I could be a fascist, but I think I'm a fascist now. And it's kind of great because I have all these new friends. Me and Amy Schumer and the ugly guy from Stranger Things. And I'm getting all these new job opportunities. And I'm like, okay, if this is what... I didn't know that fascism came with stuff. If I had known that, I'd have been a fascist a long time ago. It's kind of nice too, because now I get to be like, ooh, I'm bad. So I'm just going to be bad now. Like, I can still believe all that other stuff too, but just not now. I'm going to wait till later. But for now, I'm going to be bad. Okay. Bye-bye.
King. Watch Bad Hasbro for more of that.
I mean, he called it.
Yeah.
How many of those cases have we seen?
So many. Between the 1 and 1 and the 5, Marissa Roy is DSA, a socialist, really great on many issues. I actually know her personally. That's awesome. That's the person who's challenging that LA county. I'm forgetting the name of the actual position. Whatever.
Marshall Falk.
Yeah. LA County Attorney. City Attorney. Sorry. Jews for Jesus. Matt Lieb sounds like Ethan Klein in that clip. Funny how he nailed it. Tony32 UK. Matt giving the full hairdryer Sir Alex Ferguson treatment to his child's team. Please help out Man U, Matt.
Is that for Bender? Because I don't know. I don't interpret that.
Bender.
Yet.
Oh wait, then what was that?
You're giving the full
I thought it was for Matt
hairdryer Sir Alex Ferguson treatment to your child's team. Please help out Man U.
Oh, okay, got it. Yes.
Yeah. Central as in a democracy says, Emma, a couple weeks ago you said Katie Porter is not that good at politics when commenting on her potential run for California governor. And then the next breath you said you'd prefer to see Kamala run. I prefer her to run for California governor and not president is what I meant, or what I said. Who is so good at politics she campaigned with Liz Cheney and gave into every brain-dead establishment consultant's idea. Could you expand on this preference? Not a preference. In a world that I could make, snap my fingers of the candidates that are available, I would love for Katie Porter to be the California governor. I think she's shown some really poor political instincts in a variety of different instances, including in her Senate race, including in the half-baked embrace of Israel and Israel money. And Kamala Harris probably is going to have another campaign that she runs in. And I don't want her running for president. I think that's a bad idea. I think it's bad for the party to continue to even associate with that campaign and with the Biden presidency. I would rather her stay in California and run in that race, because I don't really think Katie Porter, frankly, has a chance to win. But we'll see. We'll see. It's 2026. It's a ways away. And you could do better than Kamala Harris for Democrats. But there hasn't really been anybody that stepped up in California. The guy that stepped up is the consultant, right? That freak that helped with the Labor Party. And he's running in California for governor.
Oh, really? The Obama guy?
Yeah. So
up with the Tories?
I don't live in California, but and New York Democrats have a ton of problems, but it feels like between Newsom and Schiff and Padilla, who have shown complete cowardice too on some of the immigration stuff, there's really not much to go but up. And I just don't want to see a guy like Dr. Phil or something who ends up running as a Republican winning that race. And Kamala has the name recognition to do that. So that's my thinking on that front.
I can't even worry about the California governor race right now. We got Andrew Cuomo to deal with for the mayoral race in New York City.
But it's just about how I hope that her national political ambitions are done. That's my reading of that situation.
Yeah, I would encourage her to leverage her law enforcement background and political campaigning abilities and run for dog catcher somewhere.
I don't think she could make it out of a Democratic Party primary, even with the name recognition of being the vice president.
She keeps polling at the top. That's
right.
Concern.
That's right now. That's because she was the nominee in 2024. I don't think she could win if they actually had a debate. She just doesn't have the sauce.
Once she starts campaigning, people will remember. People remember exactly why things worked out the way they did.
Yeah. I hope so.
I mean, also there's a very good chance too that she learned zero lessons from all of this, because you could just look at that.
Bender, I need to interrupt you. I'm sorry. She is going on the record saying she's looking into this abundance stuff and doing some other adjustments.
Yeah.
I have not looked into this abundance stuff. I refuse to learn about abundance.
My point is, I don't know if you guys saw this podcast interview. I think Matt Leck, you saw, because I think I saw that you shared it with Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
We have this. I mean, Elizabeth Warren hasn't gotten over the talking points from 2024, then you better believe Kamala Harris is going to stick with them too, which will be a sure losing position next time around.
Yeah. I would agree with that. That was a funny interview with Elizabeth Warren, and this is the thing is I think maybe Sam and I have had some disagreements on this, and not severe ones, but I do think that the Biden age thing traveled more than we realize, and people thinking that was a cover up and an abdication of responsibility. And hurt the Democrats' brand more than they realize.
They have so many things going against them. They don't need to add extra ones. It's like it's such a web of problems that like every little bit counts. When it comes to why they don't do well.
But with this one here, this clip is from a celebrity-oriented podcast called Talk Easy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is so it's not a political a person. They have celebs on and stuff like that. And going to the tight. And this is the conversation that she has here. And it's interesting because it's like they're going to these because I think they're expecting easier interviews. But this is what normal people saw. They saw that they're being lied to about a guy's age. And at the same time, they're being hectored about the importance of democracy by folks. And I thank God that this hasn't splashed back onto Bernie and AOC. And people haven't lost trust in them for that. Because I thought their approach to it was wrong too. But here's this that we're talking about.
They've got to throw her on. They've got to throw him under the bus. Kamala should have, Warren should hear, and Bernie and AOC need to.
Do you regret saying that President Biden had a mental acuity? He had a sharpness to him. You said that up until July of last year.
I said what I believe to be true.
And you think he was as sharp as you?
I'm sorry.
Wow, that pause was pregnant with like quadruplets.
No, she's literally about to break out in laughter, and I want everyone watch this woman, watch Senator Elizabeth Warren's hands. I've never seen somebody clutch their fists that tightly in an interview, and she almost lets out a full laugh here. Just go back, yeah.
She should have just let it rip.
She should have. This is how they could regain their trust if they're honest here.
Yeah. True.
And you think he was as sharp as you?
I said I had not seen decline.
That's a very lawyer answer.
At that point.
You did not see any decline from 2024 Joe Biden to 2021 Joe Biden?
Not when I said that. The thing is...
No, the way that could be true is that people were noticing Joe Biden was in severe decline even before that. So that's kind of a half truth I think she's trying to get away with there. But anyway.
There was reporting that some Democrats were taken aback by his condition because he was so cloistered. But that underlines the issues with the party, which is that there wasn't due diligence on that front. So I believe that there were a lot of Democrats taken aback by his debate performance because they probably saw him at 11 a.m. or 1 p.m. And then it was horrible, but
I still
doesn't matter.
I still maintain that one of the biggest mistakes that his campaign made was not preparing people for that debate performance. They should have told people ahead of time he was going to be bad. They should have said he got kicked in the head by a horse. They should have sent him out there with like a Band-Aid around his forehead with like
sorry.
with like a little blood spatter, and then they could have distracted from that, because having the veil just ripped off for everybody at that moment was I think very jarring. You saw how Joy-Ann Reid responded. Right. It was like I believe people were definitely shocked. I think that people were kept away from him except for in discrete moments where you're like, oh, he's just having an off day or something like that. But the problem is they still ran interference for him as though they had a lot of contact with him. And I think I understand a lot of the mentality amongst like liberal commentators, more liberal aligned commentators, the Democratic Party, progressives who might feel, alienated by those status quo Democrats' positions, but still want to work with them on them. Where it's that like they understand that at least within our system, Democrats are the best, only real current thing standing between the Republican Party and having their entire process. And so a lot of times they feel very, I think, pressured to leverage their own legitimacy, leverage their own respectability, leverage their own like fan base to run interference for the Democratic Party, who will just simply not follow through or meet you halfway on that once you've done that. Like you tell people to go out there and vote for Joe Biden because he's fine mentally, then he gets on stage and just fumbles the ball. Like, it really is just something that like people have to break themselves out of, like understanding that the Democratic Party is not going to meet you where you meet them sometimes.
Yeah.
But the real question for the real issue for me isn't so much that like, okay, listen, they did what they did then. That's just what it was. That's what it is. It is what it is. What happened, happened. But like, still, like, after he dropped out, Kamala continuing to back up Biden and defend him and all that, and the actions that were taken, and then now fast forward to after Trump's already won, and he's the president of the United States, and you have Elizabeth Warren still not being able to just throw Joe Biden under the bus. He has no power over you. Why are they continuing to act like he just had a bad moment and he was as sharp as a tack and nothing was wrong with him? Like,
right. And it's not even like Obama, where the base, like it or not, still likes Barack Obama. He could probably win a primary if he was able to run for a third term. Unfortunately, Democratic voters are still very on board the Obama train, although he sounds much more out of touch these days than normally. But like, Biden is not well liked by anybody.
I'll tell you, Obama would have thrown Biden under the bus. If the situation was the opposite, where if it was like, Obama was in Kamala Harris's position, he would have thrown Biden under the bus so fast, it would have, it would have given you whiplash. Like Obama
he was actually good at politics.
Yeah, he understood that like it's his brand over Democratic Party's brand, and that he was going to like promote himself over the Democratic Party. And people like that. People don't like the Democrats. We've seen that. Like people don't like Democrats. And I think some of this with Elizabeth Warren and other people is that they're just afraid of weakening the Democratic Party further, which by nature of our political duopoly just seems like it empowers the Republicans. So you get that fear of like, well, if I speak poorly about the Democrats, it's going to make the Republicans seem better. And it's just like, I don't think that's really the biggest concern we should have right now.
Yeah.
People don't like seeing a butt naked emperor in front of them and have everyone say, no, he's got clothes on, and actually they're very nice clothes, they're very expensive clothes, and I don't know why you're saying that he's standing there naked. We can all see. I was a producer at CNN during the 2020 primary, and there was this whole narrative, as I'm sure you all remember, about Biden's stutter, and if you were to ever make any insinuation, that he's getting up there in the years, and I don't know, maybe it's, remember there was a whole discussion about like, well, if he passes away, then Harris would be president. Isn't that great? And that's why he's going to pick the first black woman to be the vice president. But if you ever insinuated that was more than a stutter at CNN, people would like rip your head off. Like I was worried about my job security anytime I would pipe up and suggest that Biden was getting old. And as we all do, you watch his speeches, you watch his press appearances. I was not there with him physically. I don't think you needed to be inside the White House to know that he was fading. All you had to do is watch the raw feed of his speeches.
How dare you say that?
In terms of my neurological capacity.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm staying in the race.
Damn it, we're crossing streams.
I mean, I watched the vice presidential debate between him and Paul Ryan live. I watched the one between him and Sarah Palin live. And the difference between that Joe Biden and the Joe Biden who was even at the primaries in 2020 was night and day. And anyone could see that. And I think ultimately people just aren't very connected to our political system in the way that they care about it. But I will say the stutter narrative, the moment he got elected, people stopped talking about that. I've never seen something get abandoned so quickly. Suddenly it was like, okay, that was done. Okay, no one wants to talk about the stutter anymore. That's fine.
Yeah. Right. And also like even the Kamala would be president is so great thing was used so cynically, where he picked her as a black woman and made it very clear that he was picking a black woman, which I think undercut a lot of like her candidacy going forward and gifted the Republicans this DEI thing. They would have done the racism and misogyny anyway, but he still like made it more difficult for her to be his predecessor, which I also think was a part of this man's ego, where he didn't really want that. He wanted to be president for another 4 years, but when he couldn't.
He was going to be a bridge. He was going to be a bridge.
I mean, he was going to be a bridge, but not for her. Then why select her? Why not?
More of a peer.
How does somebody who was about to be 80 years old not make their vice president their ideological successor unless you're the egomaniac blue Trump that Biden is, frankly? But keep going.
The thing is, he was sharp. He was on his feet. I saw him live event. I had meetings with him a couple of times.
Senator, on his feet is not praise.
Whoopsie.
He can speak in sentences is not praise.
All right. Fair enough. Look, the question is, what are we going to do now?
Okay.
Wow.
They were holding up the guy from Weekend at Bernie's. How was I supposed to know he was dead?
Blaze Chadwell. Emma's such a Warren supporter. You got me. No, I voted for Bernie twice in the primaries, but I like Elizabeth Warren. That's 100% true. I think she does some good things, but this is a problem with the party more broadly. And like the fact that they silenced
Bernie and
dissent
AOC
on
aren't
this.
great on this exact question.
Right. I mean, unfortunately, yeah. I think she's by far the second best senator that we have. But the problem is that there should be people that I hope for a day when Elizabeth Warren is at the center of the Democratic Party, but that is not where we are.
People within the Democratic Party have to hold the Democratic Party establishment to account.
Yeah.
It can't just be about ensuring that the people who vote for you don't see how, corrupt and bad people like Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer are, because then that just empowers Republicans to be the first people to say something like that. And then people go like, oh, that's true.
Right. Right. And including the Gaza stuff too, right? I'm sorry, Bender, but just really briefly, Trump just had to say, this is bad, this is wrong. And it was the first time people had even heard that, because all of the Democrats were like this Biden H thing. We no criticizing the president, no daylight. No, that's what Trump said, or Biden said to Kamala too, but this is across the party. No daylight, kid. They are building a party based on gaslighting they built the last 4 years. There was so much gaslighting, and they are really cynical about the American public and don't see that people can pick up on it.
Yeah. And they feel like the people who can pick up on it are so afraid of what Republican politicians will do if they're in power. They'll just gaslight themselves. They'll lie. They'll either knowingly lie to other people, or they'll lie to themselves about what's going on because of the consequences of the truth.
Yeah.
Can we just give Julian Castro a little victory lap here for the time he actually said what needed to be said in 2019 and could have saved us all from this?
Barack Obama's vision was not to leave 10 million people uncovered. He wanted every single person in this country covered. My plan would do that. Your plan would not.
They do not have to buy in. They do not have to buy in.
You just said that. You just said that 2 minutes ago. You just said 2 minutes ago that they would have to buy in. You said they would have to buy in.
To buy in. If you qualify for
Are you forgetting what you said 2 minutes ago?
Be in for it.
Are you forgetting already what you said just 2 minutes ago? I mean, I can't believe that you said 2 minents ago that they had to buy in, and now you're saying they don't have to buy. You're forgetting that.
They dragged him for this. They dragged him for ableist. Yeah, for weeks. Ageist. How could you say that? How could you say that?
I remember distinctly, I was on a TYT panel watching that debate in the LA studio, covering it with them. And I was the only one there that thought that landed. And everybody else there thought that it would come off as really mean and hurt Castro. And I don't know who was right at the end of the day, but it was just interesting given what we know now about their politics, that was their reaction to that. In addition to the fact that they sold their email list to the Biden campaign.
Right. I mean, it definitely hurt Castro, but it also seems to be the truth.
I will say that the only other thing I want to highlight from that clip is that whenever people say that the Democrats need to learn to speak to the American people, they need to learn to speak to the left, the progressives, to the average citizen, I would highlight that presidential primary where basically everyone on that stage pretended like they were in favor of Medicare for all in one form or another.
Yes.
Because they knew it was popular. The Democrats know what's popular, and when they're forced to debate each other for an audience, they will pretend, they'll run to the left, they'll all copy Bernie's positions because they know they are popular. And then when it comes to the general election, they know they don't have to try as hard because they know Republicans are so far to the right that they can just go well, yeah, I'm not going to do fascism explicitly.
Yeah. All right. With that said, folks, what do we have
Run
here?
for president, Julian. This is Trump talking about how he doesn't want to raise taxes on rich people.
Oh, okay. So this is interesting. The Republicans want to extend the Trump tax cuts from 2017, and there has been some level of discussion, just chitter chatter, and I mentioned this last week, but it's not going to happen.
Sort of man bites dog stories.
Right.
That Republicans are thinking maybe we will raise taxes.
Right, and it would be a raise in the top marginal rate. What they were said to have been considering, which spoiler alert, they're not earnest about it, but Steve Bannon apparently wants this and is trying to push the Trump administration, but we're seeing that Bannon has no influence anymore. And the Republican senators are even more captured by representing the wealthy and billionaires specifically, and care a lot about delivering for them with legislation. So they're not going to consider this. But the Trump tax cuts reduced the top marginal rate to around 37%. When they expire in 2026, the top marginal rate would go back up to 39 and some change percent for rich people. And what was said to have been considered was, okay, maybe we'll just let that part of the Trump tax cuts not expire, renew the rest of them, so we can raise revenue to justify all of, the other cuts that we're trying to put into place. Because if we're doing broad-based tax cuts, that means less revenue for the federal government. We're supposed to pretend to care about the deficit, so we have to find that money somewhere. We're not finding it through Doge, because, first of all, it's illegal for Elon Musk to be doing what he's doing. Congress has the power of the purse and it's already been signed into law. The president is supposed to faithfully execute the law in that way, and Trump and Elon were illegally clawing back money or attempting to, even though we're now seeing they didn't do any of that. So that's how Trump was trying to do that on the back end. But you can't. Like, this is a part of the legislative process, and they're between a rock and a hard place right now, especially because the Republicans won lower income people for the first time since the 1950s. They want to come up with some sort of populist veneer. But no, Trump's doing crypto scams, apparently giving billionaires heads up before the tariff stuff, including the Zuckerberg and Jamie Dimon, who sold off a bunch before the tariff announcement. And now here he is saying that he doesn't support, or he wants to keep cutting taxes for the rich.
And secondly, would you support a millionaire tax?
I think it would be very disruptive, because a lot of the millionaires would leave the country. In the old days, they left states. They go from one state to the other. Now with transportation so quick and so easy, they leave countries. You'll lose a lot of money if you do that. And other countries that have done it have lost a lot of people. They lose their wealthy people. That would be bad, because the wealthy people pay the tax. Okay?
That is, by the way, not true.
Where would they go? Like to Dubai?
Be my guest.
Yeah.
Where a lot of countries in Europe, countries that are comparable to the United States in terms of infrastructure that you can access if you have incredible amounts of wealth, tend to have higher marginal tax rates on the wealthy. Where would they go besides Dubai that would not tax them at a higher rate?
Probably to the Cayman Islands or something like
No,
that. Yeah.
Good luck moving your. Also, we can control how money moves through our borders.
Also, we know that a lot of the rich people who claim to leave the country, just like when they claim to leave the states, are just lying. They still live in the United States most of the time, or when people were moving from DC to Florida during the pandemic or before the pandemic, they were called out a lot of times for actually still residing in New York or California for the majority of the year. They were just doing so, for political reasons or for marketing reasons, but they were still living where they were living.
Yeah. And Norway tried this 2 years ago. 2 or 3 years ago, they implemented a wealth tax of 1.1%, and there was some capital flight. But it did also still raise them revenue, because some people stayed behind. And Norway is not the economic powerhouse that the United States is. Part of why this is a stupid argument by Donald Trump, and it's a self-serving one for the millionaires and billionaires that he represents, is that, like what we're seeing with tariffs, you can't disentangle the global economy from the superpowers of the United States and China. And yeah, there may be some billionaires that go and hide their taxes overseas, like they're already doing. Like, we've seen countless reports about the amount of money that's hiding in tax havens already. But we could crack down on that, one, to make that illegal, and two, it's not the same thing as a small country like Norway. The United States has so much business here that it would force some percentage of these billionaires and millionaires to have their money here domestically. So this is just a way to say, hey, it's broken, but if we try to fix it, it would make it worse, so look away.
Also, it depends on how they're making their money too. I know a lot of millionaires and billionaires don't get income, don't get normal income. But as long as you're an United States citizen, you are forced to pay income tax on your money, no matter where you live in the world. Like, it's not as though just moving out of the United States gets you out of paying income tax. And if you expand that to capital gains tax, which, you know, you could, they would still, regardless of where they lived, have to pay money to the United States government if they wanted to come back, if they ever wanted to visit. So, like, it's not as though, like, just leaving the United States of America, trust me, I know, gets you out of paying taxes. That's not how it works. Some countries it does work that way, but not the United States of America. So some of that is just like a red herring.
And this is also sort of downstream of the propaganda about these people being job creators. But the truth is, we have been deferring to them. We deferred to them after the great financial crisis to get the economy back rolling, and it was a bad recovery until we started doing more interventionist things in the economy. That's what, under the Biden administration, it became one of the more dynamic, even though it was still massively unequal and impossible for normal working people to afford. It was still a dynamic economy moving a lot of things. And we can do that, and we can direct investment without deferring to people that just sit around trading all day. Because like you said about the things with the tech guys selling off a bunch of stock, with the tariff announcements, right? Like, the article I read made the point that said, even if this wasn't about insider information, these people have a different relationship to their investments than you do. They're looking at it every single day, trying to move money around. Most people don't have that luxury to be constantly like seeing, okay, is this Trump thing real? Is this thing not? But they do. And so that's why they installed him in power. All these Zuckerberg, all these freaks installed him in power. And now they get to move money around while you get wiped out.
And they also, like the day traders, remember the whole Reddit stock, GameStop thing?
Oh, yeah.
Robinhood app.
Yeah, like that was a little bit of a nascent kind of understanding of the fact that these hedge funds and these global financial institutions, they treat the increasingly as a casino for them too. And they get inside information ahead of retail and day traders and people on Reddit who, you know, it's not my hobby, but there are some people that are trying to make money that way. And you read like the Wall Street bets or even the stock market Reddit, honestly, this sounds like it's not very scientific, but these are where these discussions are being had by people who may not have leftist politics, but they see that like we are, this is rigged against us. These huge hedge funds, they're getting ahead of this. And like Elon Musk, it just happened yesterday or 2 days ago, where the quarterly earnings report came out showing these dismal numbers for Tesla. And by the next morning, what do you know? Tesla stock was bought up by a bunch of people on the cheap. These are the kinds of things that you get to do when you have inside information. But although it was probably Elon Musk who was trying to inflate his own value as he saw that falling apart. Q2 is going to be even worse for him.
Also, a lot of these companies make money off the downturn too. Like, it's not all about placing the bet on the winning company. They place bets on who's going to lose too, and they make out like bandits.
Exactly right. Shorting positions. And is it Lutnick that's rumored to have short positions on the United States economy?
I think there was some accusation about that.
You're playing the game called capitalism.
Yes, you are. All right, guys. With that, we are going to read some IMs and get out of here. Dave from Jamaica. Capital flight is a myth for USA. There's no place for them to go. Where will they go? To China? Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, although I do think as we have this sort of giant world trade panic attack, I think that we could call it, what Trump did. That's actually about the anxiety about, can this system provide, good lives for people? The world needs to not be looking at tariffs, although in targeted fashion, I support tariffs. The world needs to be looking at a global wealth tax to make sure that billionaires don't exist in any country and can't steal away all of the income that they have made being a parasite and employing workers like Jeff Bezos. What's he going to do after having thousands and thousands and thousands of people break their backs across this country to deliver junk to people? And but Jeff taking a skim of that every single time, he's going to leave. That shouldn't be allowed anywhere. That's a crime against humanity, whether it's within the American borders or without.
Mr. Melancholy, any of the MR crew seen Sinners yet? If so, did you catch it on 70mm IMAX? I tried to get tickets on Friday for the 70mm.
It's a horror movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's I don't care. I'll see that.
I'm excited. I haven't seen it yet.
It's action horror. Like some of the horror that you're into, it's like it's gore that I can't do.
Oh, I don't like gore either. I like ghosts.
It looks like
ghosts and demons.
It looks like from dusk till dawn. That's what it reminds me of. So I'm excited for that.
That's the Guillermo Benicio del Toro.
Robert Rodriguez
right.
and Quentin Tarantino wrote it.
Oh.
It stars like George Clooney.
Oh.
Selma Hayek's in it, I'm pretty sure.
Oh.
That's what I remember.
Yeah,
it's a good movie. It's a good movie.
Stunning. And funny in 30 Rock. Maybe that'll finally get you to watch 30 Rock.
She's really good in 30 Rock.
She's really good in 30 Rock, yes. Great guest stars.
That's what it means to be a mighty man of
Yes,
valor.
it does. But I have tickets to see Sinners in a regular theater tomorrow, which I got reluctantly, but I'm thinking I may kick the can to next week so I can see it in 70 millimeter. Scary Carrie, by the way, that Fandango refunds, you can just Fandango, gotta say, great service where you can buy tickets and then you just get a credit if you can't make the theater and you can go see it at the, whatever.
Free advertisement.
Free advertising.
You're playing a game called capitalism.
I use that feature
Fandango.
a lot.
Advertise on the majority report.
Please.
Or the discourse, whatever. I love movies. I see movies all the time.
I mean, you don't get that like $2 fee back, but like if you can cancel going to see a movie if you don't have the last minute change.
We'll
anyway.
have some fun. I'll see you out the trail.
Rambling as usual. Okay. Thames Darwin. And the other thing not often said enough is in the late 1970s, the ANC and the Spear of the Nation launched a formal armed struggle against the South African government. And it was at least that, in addition to BDS, that brought apartheid to an end.
Preach.
AOC for Prez says the UK Supreme Court just ruled that the legal definition of men and women can only be based on biological sex. What are the implications do you think that will have outside of Turf Island, if any? I need to read more into it. This was one of the guests that we went out to for today. An expert on this, but we were unable to book them. So it seems like horrible news, but yeah.
I did watch something about this on my stream the other day, and at best, it seems a very confused ruling. Like, it doesn't seem like it actually clarifies anything about like what is a woman, as Matt Walsh would say. It just seems like the biggest impact it's going to have is to empower bigots in individual organizations to, engage in policing of spaces and people's bodies. And then, if you wanted to redress that, you have to sue them.
Right.
Yeah, I would look at Stephen Novella if you're looking into the science. Obviously, like folks more into the trans stuff already know this stuff, but the thing where the trans people think that if we just go to biology that their side wins is very stupid, because it's actually not the case.
Well, and they can't define it in the UK version, because unlike Matt Walsh, they couldn't get by with the adult female human definition. Right. That doesn't actually explain anything.
Yeah.
And once you try to actually assign characteristics to women, in reality, you find that you're starting to exclude women that you probably know. Like, once you start to think about like secondary sex characteristics, the ability to have children, the presence of female sex hormones or female sex organs, you immediately in the moment go like, oh no, I realize that this excludes X person or this excludes Y person who I would think is a woman. And so you just try to hope that you can get away with like the common sense definition. Like, oh, I know it when I see it. It was like, no, you don't.
Yeah, no, you don't. All right, 5 more and then we'll get out of here. Nuclear power GPT, the politics of actual Irish people are light years better than the politics of Irish Americans. Yeah.
Ireland, they legalized abortion through, I think, a referendum like a few years ago.
Yeah, despite the, some of the Catholicism.
What do you think about Catholicism?
Yeah. Noel from San Francisco, and what are we going to do now is everything but introspection. I think that might have been a reference to the Matt Lee video. Parade of Idiots. Emma, are you ready for Shadur Sanders? The Giants are not drafting Shadur Sanders. Not happening. Thank God. But good job wearing those cleats, buddy. I'm really trying to will that into existence. I don't like it. I'm a Cam Ward stan, but we lost out on him.
I thought that was like a new nickname for Bernie.
I know.
It's like, oh man.
It's Deion Sanders' kid.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that actually.
Is like a Twitter world loves him as a quarterback, but the NFL world is not as high on him. And I don't really think he has an elite skill set. Like, he's fine, but I would not take him in the first round.
Deion Sanders is the coolest professional athlete in the history of sports.
Arguably the greatest football player of all time.
Wow.
I think there's a case to be made. Tom Cotton, although I will still say Lawrence Taylor. Tom Cotton's beard. The New York Times Daily can be hit or miss, but they interviewed a woman who was on Shark Tank and had a successful baby accessory company, and how now with the tariffs, she's looking to start selling her products in different countries since it's too expensive to import to America. Trumpists are so dumb.
I mean, this is very similar to how Brexit played out in the UK, which is not to say like the EU was a pro-worker sort of body, and there's a lot of criticisms of sort of how it entrenches neoliberalism, but the idea that withdrawing from that without a actual plan towards state industrial policy and, you know, creation of jobs, what you end up doing is just basically, I think the Prospect had a piece in this, advantaging monopolies that can play the game with all the barriers, and any small businesses are going to get absolutely washed.
Yeah.
Antifa Lockhart. Now I'm like, Emma underselling a mobile QB again. ESPN never ended. Shadur Sanders is not a mobile quarterback. He's not. Cam Ward is a better athlete. Jalen Milroe is a better athlete. He's more of a pocket passer. That's an inaccurate read of
that's a real thing.
His skill set.
Now, the people that want to deny that that's a real thing, you're doing a disservice for everyone.
And also, that is not even an accurate read on my perspective on mobile quarterbacks as a huge fan of mobile quarterbacks. So double pox on your houses.
Double toilet trouble.
Yeah. How dare you misrepresent my opinions on mobile quarterbacks here on the Majority Report. And the two more. Number 13, Zoran is meeting with Al Sharpton today, which could be incredibly helpful to his campaign.
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Older black people love Al Sharpton.
I'm surprised that Al is, even engaging in that.
Did you see the New York Post accusing Zoran of using AI to speak Spanish in that ad?
Oh no, but
it's a great ad, and it's obviously not AI.
No, he's just like really smart.
It's the sort of thing where like it's a stupid story because it's like he's going to just do it at a debate and prove you wrong.
Right.
You can also just learn Spanish. Like you can just like it's not
what?
Like you can just learn Spanish. Hola.
Yeah, if you're woke.
Me llamo Brandon.
Gracias.
And the final I am of the day. Kowalski from Nebraska. For the capital class, it's a win-win situation between the Republicans and the Democrats because they can just support the Republicans, and if they win, they get what they want. And if the Democrats win without their support, the Democrats uphold the rule of law, which inevitably means the capital class will win anyway. Appreciate you all.
Vladimir. You do it, it's going to be a bad day.
That's what Democrats say at Capitol.
I love it because it was also a late night call for him, so the dentures are a little bit loose. Anyway, Binder, Brandon in studio. It's so good to see you.
It is.
And Russ and Matt, thank you guys so much. We will see you tomorrow.
Gracias.
De nada.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. The months drifted into years while I shifted in and out of